Okay, don't say nothing, sign it.
Okay, okay, yeah, he so,
Cause
Um,
it's recorded.
yeah. The a quote for the radio stuff.
Oh,
He stopped down today, gave me the quote for the tower, so I just figured I'd stop in and go over that real quick, make sure everything is good.
cool.
Much different than we expected, isn't it?
It's my favorite.
So this is for the, no, I don't think so. This is just for the tower part.
How was your vacation?
I haven't left yet.
I was
tried it.
impressed with the service.
Okay.
Desperately trying to finish stuff so I can go.
Yeah. So he was down today, even the videos. I just barely asked him to the other day. So he is good about it. Oh, yeah. I read the other day. I think I would have said.
Exactly. Exactly.
Pictures,
Yes,
money on them.
plenty of them, perfect. This is exactly what I needed.
I figured what's his name should have been able to just give them to you. I know he's got them all.
Oh, does he? Yes, I don't know. I haven't heard from him in weeks,
Yeah.
but.
That's for the Stafford Road. Quote.
Yeah.
That's gonna grant and down the bottom.
He's already on.
Yeah, it's only one of those. It's the 258.
One we sent, yeah. Those are all
So
different.
they're
lots.
four different quotes.
Oh.
Yeah. All same chunk road.
Okay. But you get it now.
Yeah, he said he had a license in FCC already. I sold like, I thought it's what.
Yeah.
You now can sign. Perfect. Yep.
I am. Yeah, it'll be 10 days with the two travel days, one on each end, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very excited. Tennessee is gonna pick me up. Huh?
Oh, yeah. Doing the, getting those pictures to you and, walking along the bank there and. Pistol laid right behind his eyes. And it was shiny.
Yep.
Looked very, very, very.
Yep.
I gave it just a little bit of kick. Yeah, that's all made of steel.
Yep.
And,
plastic.
There ain't no plastic on it, and, but, when the sheriff came to pick it up, he took some pictures of it, and then he, picked it up, and he says, well, this is one of those CO2 guns.
Yeah.
And he says, people can get shot by them things, not, because they look so real.
Right, exactly, yeah.
They looked awful real to me. I
You
guess-
know, just
No, I don't
part of
know
a
that.
bid on these. Weatherization heating.
Yeah, we only got a bid for the heating part, but we're not running the bids, it's Two Rivers.
Yeah.
And they are gonna have to reopen it. Megan Ashby is my contact, and she said they're discussing this week, like when they're gonna reopen it and try to get additional bidding. Makes me happy that we're not running the bidding.
Yeah.
We had to open the brick grant bidding 3 different times just to get bids, so.
Yeah.
Chris Bump ever done anything about that covered bridge?
Yeah, I mean, I'll pull it up in a minute. I mean, no, except that they sent me a message saying that they knew they owed me something and, they knew they owed me something.
Oh, yeah, okay. Nothing's.
Maybe McCarthy was the last person he responded. With the list of repairs, said they did not develop a plan set or computed an estimate. They worked with Chelsea a few years ago to advertise the project remotely. He's gonna look into the information requested to be sure the contractor should say, oh, bid, ever worked on deciding not specialized. Develop some plans as soon as he can. That was
Do what?
2 months ago.
Oh. Yes.
Here's my other computer over there, done backing itself up, I can tell you.
I guess it's no big deal, but I just was curious. That runs out.
No, it'll definitely run out.
What's new?
That's what I thought.
Hello,
That's my favorite board chairman.
before me.
Yeah. Don't say anything rude, because we're on board already.
Walk around from here.
I said, don't say anything rude.
You don't mind questions I can do. There's more comments, so I like.
Chairs.
How you doing?
Okay,
Grass green up a little bit today.
even the warm rain, you really take off. On what sales would go up,
Yep, even though it's small scrub.
well, sort of. Grace.
What's that?
You check the pump or whatever it is, you can do a solenoid on it.
Yeah.
and you can go. There's no juice on it. And it's, It's small. But it's like the wires is a brown and yellow.
Pull it out, and try it, and you can watch the plunger. You know, it used to back on.
Yeah.
And plunger went out. Yeah, they were
Even in the.
drafted snow.
Yeah, it's on all day. It's an automatic transmission, what do I do?
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh.
The small ones are.
We didn't have those when I was in the way.
That's all fun. Ah,
Anyway, I'll figure it out tomorrow.
yeah, just pull the solenoid out and then. just
Yeah, we
took it
that
Yeah. way. Like the yellow wire on, put a hot, see this. And if that doesn't do anything, then switch.
Yeah.
Send it to North Side of New York.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of sparks and stuff, don't worry about
I guess
it.
it's fine, we'll just-
And no hot sparks right now on the drive.
But if you want, you use a wire, use it, and that way it improves it.
Why did you say that?
I wouldn't see that.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, and that's long forward, let's start our meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much through the winter, but.
All right, let's bring the meeting to order. And it says road report first. Why don't Rodney start?
Small list. I've got some road stuff before.
We got the trucking going on to get the gravel down to us.
You pleased?
And so far, it seems to be good. Gonna be, gonna be a little dusty, so we're gonna have to figure out how to treat it with water as we're working it, so we keep the dust down until we can get the chloride out there. But today was exceptionally drying things out pretty fast, and got pretty wild with dust there for a little while.
Have you just been patching along, or do you have stretches ready to go?
I've been basically putting it where we had trouble last year with the with this year with the mud, and we do 2 inch to.
Mhm.
And we've been putting it on those spots like, let's put a section on your road that bad, that's gonna have.
They always do
the
the
on
section.
there.
We're gonna get done before the pavement goes on.
Just to let you all know that there is quite a stretch there that's gonna need some of that put on it. But it's, I think we'll have plenty. I shouldn't say we will have, but I think we'll have pretty much enough to cover everything that we probably hit with that big stuff.
Mhm.
It seems to be, covering very nicely. But I'll say again, the dust is a little bit strong. I think it's gonna probably pack all right, but I have had people say that it don't pack good, so we're gonna find out.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Where did it come from?
Northeast,
Which is,
Granite Quarry and Chip Berry.
oh, okay. Now, just my opinion on the chloride, you're not gonna pack it, you're not gonna get rid of the dust with water. You're gonna have to put chloride on it. Now, my understanding
Did
is,
you see a chloride truck come by today?
yeah, but was it chloride or was it water?
It was chloride.
Well. Doesn't look like it too much tonight, down in. At Lola's and Babcock's, it's a lot darker, but the rest of it is pretty thin and it may turn out, but. I'm just telling you, my. Thing on this is, you've got to put the chloride on it. For it to pack down. It isn't the chloride that makes them muddy. I know you guys disagree with me. But you better try it with the good stuff. If this is good stuff. We put the chloride on and that'll last you all summer. It does have to be, in my opinion. I'm not an expert. But I know a little bit about this stuff. You do have to crown this a little more than the other stuff.
Yep, well, give us a chance.
Okay?
Yep.
But cause I stopped Rodney today and I asked if he's gonna put chloride down and. While they were driving over it, that's the time to pack it,
Okay,
okay?
what else you got, Ron?
I got, I need some teeth for the home underneath the truck.
How much are they at these now?
I expect you would tie up close to $1,500 for a set of teeth for that thing.
Been a while since you bought any, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's gonna need some, and I just wanted to let you know that something like that we're gonna do, hopefully we're gonna do, if you say it's all right.
I think it is.
We just have one home.
I have two, but
We have two. And both of them have stinger system on them.
So you only want enough for one truck then? or-
One truck's got some fairly decent ones. The other one, think that it's any good.
New dentures.
Or for
On
that?
the outside of it. Except for the Stratton Road, we take down the signs that we put up. Springtime mud season.
Yeah.
Haven't seen any reason to leave them up any longer than that. And, yesterday, we first did work on any roads, we went to an in-shot class. That was last paper for that,
What is that?
in-shot.
Find it.
So, we can go into the quarry and stuff without. We having a bit over it. And. Would you wanna do crack sealing this year?
We need to?
I think we should. I just think, but I just wanted to, before I get anybody down there, I just wanted to bring it across the board. Cause, I think if you keep
Better
it-
to do a little every year than.
I think if you keep it sealed up, the longer it lasts.
There are particular stretch of the Stratford Road or the whole thing.
If I get a grant. That's the worst of what's up there will be redone.
Out in front of your house.
Now it starts down below his house, all the way to court there. But it's actually from like, Randy Teller's, to court.
That's the part you want to repave?
Right. Last of all, like to start the 4 days a week.
This week?
First of May is what I'm thinking.
That's a good idea.
And that's all my little list has on it. So now we,
I got. This. I went up and got a. Some gravel off my colors. And had it tested. That very much that there. And just want you to read that, and these guys will read it. The guy that runs that is pretty. Well, he's a little whack tonight, but,
Does he know what he's doing?
he's pretty wound up about those granite stuff.
Positive or negative?
Positive.
Yeah.
And he said Williamstown's been using it quite a while. With good results, and he said that. If we use. 300 ton on a road right now, in a couple of years, we'll only have to use 100 ton. Because. This granite won't go in it. It's just gonna pack right in. There is. Like no fines in this. Which he said might cause a problem on a hill.
Mhm.
If we put it in. And during the summer, he said, you know, if it's muddy. Then it will pack in. And it'd be good, but he said if you put it on in summer, it doesn't pack as well because it's not as much.
So you get washboards.
Yes. And
says that they mainly do not use.
this. Says that. If Rodney put the stuff from the colors on right now. By the time snow fell, 31% of it would be gone.
Already.
You know, cause it's fines and.
Yeah,
And
goes well.
dust and mud.
Yeah.
Stuff, so.
They let you have some from the color.
Can I ask a question? Yeah.
Sure.
Now, this guy, he said there shouldn't be no fines in it, no dust.
This granite, there's no fines in it, not saying there's no dust in it. But it doesn't have the fines that are gonna hold water. Like McCullough's does. Because the fines is what holds the water on the road. And this stuff, the water's gonna drool through.
Is he saying that, then you don't need the chloride?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, I'm just
I'm
asking.
just saying, I'm talking about material, I'm not talking about guts. What I'm saying is, the stuff from McCullough's is 13.4% fines, which is muck. The stuff we're getting from Berry is less than 6%. So it's all stone.
Now, do you know what, the fines is from the stuff from Lebanon Fresh Stone or?
Yeah,
Penn
I
State?
do, I got it all
I'd like
right
to
here.
hear that too.
And the stuff we're getting is pipes is around, supposed to be around 6% because it's supposed to be
Federal.
state approved, but this test that we got, it was actually over 6%.
Which did you put on the rec road, Rodney?
That was the pipe.
We haven't used any of this northeast yet.
Going down as we speak, well, not as we
Okay.
speak, nobody's working right now, but been going
You
down.
used it, didn't you say you got some once or something?
I've never used any of
Okay.
this. But we've been over into.
Pipes is 10.17% fines. Which, I don't understand how that can be, because supposedly it's, if it's approved for state of Vermont, it's gotta be less than 6%. There,
Probably varies
there.
depending on what.
the
what area you're
inch
using.
and a half is like 5%. But if you get the 3/4, which is what we're getting, then it's 10%.
Do they add the fines or do they crush them
No,
at the
it's what's-
quarry?
It's what, when you
Left
crush
hand.
the stone, that's what you get, and the granite's so hard, you don't get the dusty stuff.
Right.
If you was to pick up a handful of granite from over there, you'd say, wow, that's got a lot of fines in it. But it's not actually fines, it's little fine pieces of stone itself.
It's hard stone,
Yeah.
and the stuff
But
like
it's got-
colors or something.
It's got what we, well, if you was to look at it, you'd say, wow, that's got a lot of fines in it.
Right. But it's
But
actually filtered. with the
Well,
water,
years.
right?
Yeah, the granite's not gonna wear, like, the colors, and that's where you get your loss.
Yeah.
With much.
But I believe if you don't use the chloride, you'll still have a lot of loss, right?
I don't know,
I don't,
we're gonna
You
use
don't?
chloride, so we may never know.
Huh?
We're gonna use chloride, so we may never know.
We are gonna use chloride, it's, but. You could say that you are gonna use chloride. And I can tell you for a fact, that if I put chloride on too early. And the grader hits it again, it's like you never did a thing to it, it's gonna just dust right back up. So the chloride goes down last.
So Adam was gonna come over when I see him.
Right. Was there a section of road you were gonna try not putting chloride on? Because I thought you were gonna experiment whether it affected the frost.
We never actually said we would not use any. We're trying to cut back to see if it would help out.
And what you couldn't really tell or.
Well, I don't know. And the reason why I'm gonna say I don't know is last year, if everybody remembers, we didn't have one fall mud season. And it could have been the weather. Could have been the dry summer. Could have been, we didn't use as much chloride as we have in the past. But one of them things, actually, we did something, because we never had a mud season last year from December to March, where the year before and the year before that, and the year before that, we had like 5 of them every year. And so I felt that we gotta take a little action and see if we can do something that makes it better. We can't just stay on the same path and think we're gonna get anywhere with it. So, yes, I've taken some heat for not using chloride, but we gotta try something. And that's the only reason that we're backing off on it.
And
is
that's
try
why
to see-
we're also trying the stone.
That's right.
Try to get,
You see if we can come up with something that, because the one thing I hate the most is I have a mud season after I grade every road when it rains. Only happens once and then they harden up, but I want to try to get rid of that too. And so that's why we're trying these things.
Take a stretch of Monarch and do like no chloride, less chloride and usual chloride, and we'll see what
Yeah.
happens. Little experiment.
Pavement.
Well, I mean, Adam said that you had an idea of maybe dividing the utility shed over there at the transfer station, so we could put the trailer under that and he could put lawnmowers or whatever.
Yes,
under
I
it.
told him that I couldn't see any reason under the sun to close up that whole building. It's gonna be more handy for people to put something under it. If it ain't all closed up and locked up,
Yeah.
but it needs I suggested we split the building in half. Sheathe up the one half of it, put a padlock on the door, so. Cause if you leave the lawnmower down there, somebody else is gonna have it.
Yeah.
If you don't, they're gonna think, oh wow, somebody threw that away, I guess I'll have that. And so, you know. I think it belongs down there and I think we should, cause I mean, even if where it's set right today. Over the winter, I threw a chain on it with a padlock, make sure it stayed there. But I don't feel that we can't fix this little building to have a door on it. Lawnmower and snow blower and this and that can set in there. I mean, I'd like to have it half the building because I would like to put our mulcher and stuff like that in there, so it's is out from anybody being able to walk off with it.
Something to think about.
Yep.
Then we gotta do a visit of the shed at some point. Just to see if we're gonna replace it.
Yep. So that's all you got, Rodney?
That's all I got.
I have,
and
Radio stuff
Rodney,
for they have.
Rodney told me that we had about half of the material.
That's
in
fair.
From Northeast.
Yeah.
And we still have fair charge over there.
Yeah.
It should be a decent. And if the calculations are right, it will run a little over 2,000 yards in.
All right, who wants to go first, Mary Ann?
sure, so Rodney, I have a concern about, one of the things Gary's gonna be asked to sign tonight is the contract with Northwoods to start the fix on Stratford Road Slide 1. And in this notice to proceed, they're indicating that they wanna start work on, I think it said September 5th, and it'll take them 45 days. And that is gonna mean that Stratford Road is closed during the fair, so that makes me nervous. I don't know if you've talked to Northwoods at all or Sean at all.
Talked to them, they said it was gonna be August 1st.
45 days, so. Close to the fair.
Picture anybody really after 45 days.
It's a lot of traffic on Drew Road too. 45.
Because they were gonna try to put the culvert in the next month. So that would take care of the road being totally shut down at all.
Good, okay, so I mean, I'm happy to push back on them and just say like, maybe it was just a typo in their document or something.
I feel worried about that, so. I don't think we planned them to be that late.
Okay, so we're,
Is there?
the last conversation you had with
I
them
think
was
it's no
August.
date there. No, that's number one.
Around August first, I would say, but I'd hate to see it's August first is Sunday, because I didn't look through the calendar.
Oh, sorry, September 2nd, yeah, so this email from them says. In addition, the notice to proceed is enclosed for your signature. I put the date the project will commence. In correspondence with Mary Ellen from Northwoods, they would like to commence work on September 2nd. Please let us know if that's acceptable, and then this says it will take 45 days, so September 2nd plus 45 days, but that's there.
Sure does.
So also, I can say September 2nd is not acceptable.
Yeah.
Needs to be August.
Cause I was hoping that they would get this culvert in just like they said they would. So that when the blacktopping took place, it could be re-blacktop where the culvert came out.
Correctly.
And this will really put a kibosh to that idea.
Yeah,
The fair's really late this year,
No.
or is it next year, it's really late, one of the years.
Yeah, it's like the normal, I think Saturday, 13th again, so I but this was I pulled up this from the website, but this was last year's info, so it looks like it was 12th through the 15th last
It's
year.
really okay, and then the next year, because I know from our weddings, it was like the 19th or something next year.
Yeah, I think it's like the 13th.
okay.
something like that.
Push
This
that.
is slide one.
Slide 1. That we have the $200,000 grant to fix.
Will slide 2 not happen this year? It's calendar year.
Slide 2 will absolutely not happen this calendar year. That's the grant that, when we get to my section, I have a bunch of stuff for you, but. This was actually the contract with fixing. So Rodney, culvert when, sorry, I just wanna make sure I can push back appropriately. You were hoping the culvert was gonna be done when?
They said they thought they could get the culvert done in May. Holy. Say that they, cause I realized when we were having our conversation, they weren't writing nothing down.
Well, Mary had to tell them what's gonna happen.
So so what do you guys wanna say in terms of when the road can't be out of commission from September what to what?
I would say the week of the fair would be, the whole week is
Whole week.
pretty busy.
If we have an emergency during the fair, we're gonna need it.
Yeah. If we do have, that'll be nice, but it's still. I'll-
If they're working in time, they're gonna have to not work that week.
Right.
Yeah.
September 11th through the 14th. So the Monday of that week. Through the Monday of the following week.
Yeah.
That's all I needed.
Okay. Simon, you had radio business?
Radio business, so the radio guy came down today and he had, did some work for us. He had a quote for the tower,
Mhm.
for doing the tower that he had talked about. And here's a copy of it, but it came up to $8,307.15. And he suggested we split it right down the middle and you guys pay half and we pay half.
Mhm.
And that'll give us the whole tower and everything we need. I believe, I don't remember the exact price of his first quote, but you guys had, approved like 25,000.
Not to go over
Right,
25.
I would say
Yeah.
25.
It was 23 something.
And why was it so much higher, did he say?
What's that?
The
So
tower.
this is. Worst case, he said it may come in cheaper, like there's some stuff like a 55-gallon drum. And I'm thinking that Rodney probably has a 55-gallon drum or
Oh,
will
yeah,
have one
yeah.
before then.
I think we can find them.
Right,
And,
What you
I
charge for
would,
time on drum?
we had,
$12
town owns the backhoe and
I'll
that.
tell you
Right,
one for
right.
six.
and I don't know if we wanna get the concrete ourselves.
Full of antifreeze.
Don't have that.
$5 worth of concrete, but. Yeah, by the time you add everything up, and then batteries for both that, actually you could take. Cause we're gonna use 4 of the batteries and you guys are gonna use 2, to back up your system, so we could probably take. Yeah, separate it a little bit different, but
We need to make a new motion.
I think so.
I didn't see his original quote, so I don't know how much that was.
I thought he said something about 2,000, he thought, was it that for the antenna
I
roughly?
was trying to remember,
Yeah.
I don't really remember.
Wasn't it $300 a section and then there were
Right.
maybe 2 sections plus?
There was 2 main sections that were $257 a piece, and then the top section is $330
Yeah,
a section,
cause-
$330 a section, and then the bracket for holding it to the building is
Yeah.
$270. Hinge plate is the most expensive, $443.
Did he come up and do the test in his pickup
Mhm.
Yep,
and that worked out?
Rodney
Yeah,
went,
we drove
walked,
everywhere.
yeah, or, yeah, drove around.
I went where we've never talked to nobody.
You only had a couple little dead spots, right, from the hurricane.
The one spot that we, I figured sure is anything, we would not be talking to each other, it'd be on the backside of Stratford Road down to town line.
No, not a problem, yep, yep.
And.
Once you get past the town line, you lose it, but yeah, to the town line, it's.
And he had an antenna just in the back of his truck, so this one would be higher, in
Yeah.
a better spot.
And the only weak spot we had was a couple of the little spots up on
Dickerman.
Dickerman. But then we go up the road 500 feet and we'd be just as clear as could be with each
Yeah.
other. And then we go a little further and it would die out, but never once did it die out on his end coming to us.
Yep,
It was just us getting back. to
right,
him.
because you're sending it out at 30 watts and he's sending it back to you at 100. So,
55.
or 55, yes, right,
He's
it's.
rough becoming an expert.
He is.
Hey,
This is scary.
you gotta listen when you're doing tough, that's all.
But I have been impressed with his work, his stuff so far, he seems to be on point and
Yeah.
he's charging $65 an hour for his work,
Yeah.
which is cheap.
Yeah.
So,
I think you ought to make a motion if they have this.
I make a motion that we pay half of the 2-way radio antenna setup,
Which is what?
which is,
The estimate.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna figure this
I
out,
want you to do it in your head.
I can't.
Yeah, man, yes.
Well,
Have it by the year.
4,153,
See, he did this. now.
57.
He did do it.
Robbie with it.
We'll pay the extra penny.
You say it last time.
4,153 and 57 cents. We'll pay 58 cents on our side.
Yeah.
Okay, I made a motion that we pay half for radio antenna. Setup, which would be $4,153.57.
And the fire department will pay the other.
And
Yeah.
fire department hopefully we'll pay the other.
I second that one.
All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Alright,
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
I will talk to him this week and I'll get it approved by our board. And he may start on the antenna and the tower before your license comes in.
Did we get an easement?
yes, we got it right here.
Oh, do you have it?
I gave a copy of ours to Mariah and she was gonna run it past Sarah Buxton, she's on there, so she can
Yeah,
tell you.
we got everything right here.
And the other thing, yeah, I do have to run it like, hey, just make sure that she's okay with it. I have spoken to her verbally, but I just wanted.
Yep.
Tell her, yeah, go over one more thing.
Does that have to be grounded, that tower?
Yep.
Mhm.
There's 2 4-foot ground rods and ground clamps and 3/8 ground cable on here.
And he doesn't, just to your knowledge too, he doesn't recommend that the FM radio be up on the same site. It could end up interfering.
Where's that gonna be?
There's just a question asked one of the nights about that
He
site.
told me that we should not put a radio station beside that. Gotta be at least 1 mile away.
Because they're continuously broadcasting, whereas we're only broadcasting when requesting. It's very,
Seize the day.
yeah.
Right.
John? Oh, you have the radio stuff?
That's all I had. Anything else you gonna go?
No, did you make sure that the title of that easement agreement is correct?
Yeah, the one thing, I think that easement was, I think it's in the town's name. I wouldn't mind having both the town and the fire department on it. So that we're equal.
Well, it
in that.
says here, emergency services, service agencies serving the town of Tunbridge,
Okay,
so that's you.
You okay with that?
yeah, I mean, I would think we would want it,
Was that
Just say,
the town
oh.
Tunbridge too?
right, I would wanna make sure it
Yeah.
covered you guys too.
Oh, and it says and designated by the Tunbridge Selectboard,
Okay,
but not for any commercial purpose or benefit of any business.
so yeah, as long as you guys are good with that, I just wanted to say, when it says emergency services or Tunbridge Fire Department. I'm going for fire department,
We could probably change that.
Sarah wrote something about. We thought it would be better to put. Something about keeping it legal.
Oh,
Be a little clear if the statement said this easement is intended to run the building.
yeah. Yeah, that's the whole, Kay doesn't mind if we do much, but later on down the road. It'd be nice to be able to make sure that we still have a place,
If it changes on there.
yeah,
Yeah, and says here, emergency service agency service.
Yep,
So that would be part of the deed then,
right,
so. Property.
yep. And the other thing is,
Sold.
currently we don't pay anything for the power we're using. Or anything for
For the
the
generator?
generator upgrade and stuff like that, but.
That's not part
I
of
don't know
this.
how that,
That's
right,
just an arrangement.
right. So, down the road, we may have to pay for power, but that's minimal.
Can't do your podcast from there on.
Yeah, yeah. Be fine.
Well, that was all I had, yeah.
yeah,
All right,
but this is going forward.
The calendar timeline was, he's gonna get going right on this and then.
so he already submitted your FCC license.
Oh, right, we gotta wait.
Last Friday or Monday or something, wasn't sure what day, but that's been submitted. So he's just waiting for that to come back. As soon as that comes back, he'll get your stuff ordered, and going. He may do the tower beforehand, because he can do that, so.
Right.
We may do that beforehand, so that way, when, as soon as your license comes in, we're not waiting to then build the tower at that point.
Okay.
So,
Right, sounds good.
yeah,
I just wanna say thank you to all of you for getting to the bottom of this radio problem that we're having.
and, yeah,
It's not been easy for me to communicate with everybody because it just hasn't been working. I thank you for doing that.
so thank you for finding the guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, then the fact that he says, well, I'll be down next Monday.
Yeah.
It's been shocking to me.
That's what he says.
So can I make a copy of that, because I'll need it for the grant file.
Yep. And actually, I don't know if that's, well, yeah, I
Here,
don't know if
what?
that's in the grant or not, but yeah.
This is the new radios, right?
So that's the. The mast or the tower for the antennas, so it is for that, but then there's another quote that they had last week that has all the actual radio stuff
Okay,
with it, so you want that as well.
yes, please.
I was gonna copy that one, but.
Who's working with Kay?
I'll probably end up, it may not be a bad idea if we, if, I don't know if it's me and Rodney or me and one of you guys go up and meet with her and just go over exactly what it's gonna look like so that she has an idea of that. Cause it is gonna be now a little bit higher and a little bit closer to the driveway and stuff, but
I think.
But sometimes it's gonna be removed, so she might actually like it, there's an old antenna that's coming down.
Yeah.
The other old telephone poles coming down,
Right.
so it's
Yeah.
kind of cleaning up and consolidating a bit.
you know. Would I be able to grab you one day and go up there and,
Yeah, let me know.
okay. I know it's a long drive.
I just leave. Do nothing.
Vote in mileage.
We're working on your car.
Yeah.
Perfect, yeah, I'll set up a thing with Kay then
Yeah,
and let me know and. Go up there and go over that, perfect, all right, thank you
Thank
guys.
you.
Oh, thank you.
You can leave it. Please, if you want. Oh, yeah, tell me it's what. Out of here. All right,
Let's see, y'all.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Said sidewalk scoping final report. Drew Gingress. Drew, are you going to speak?
I would love to.
There he is.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
All right, so I'm gonna see, so it doesn't look like I have sharing privileges, so I'm gonna go ahead and submit that request real quick because I have assembled a brief, very brief presentation. Not sure who's running the ones and twos on Zoom here, but if I can get permission, I can plan to share.
Here he is, working on it as we speak.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mariah, did it?
Yeah.
Not much.
She said she might not be there till 7. But she said on the board.
I think I saw, did I see Janet on one of the screens?
Yeah, Janet's way in the back.
Way in the back there, all right, and then I have Rita from Two Rivers Adequachi Regional Commission as well here.
Hello, everyone.
Right up.
So I am a WebEx user, not a Zoom user. Someone want to point me to the right location to give somebody else share access? I don't know.
So I think if you click on participants,
Participants, all right.
and I think under, if you go to Drew, and there should be 3, is it 3 dots?
All right. Let's
There
Yep.
should be like share privileges or make co-host or
Elevate to host or co-host, yeah. I vow to not abuse the power that comes with co-host
power.
responsibilities.
All right. It is not agreeing to that. It's allowing me to pin him, but that's the only thing I'm allowed to do with Drew.
Do you have a copy of the presentation, Marianne, by chance?
No, I don't believe I shared it.
Oh, okay.
And are you not on? Can you?
She said she might not come on until 7.
Hold on.
Yeah, it says that what I'm seeing for instructions is to hover over my name and click more and then choose make host or make co-host. That's what you're seeing.
Hover over.
I can't seem to request, but if you hover over my name.
Yeah, it's not giving me anything when I hover over your name. The 3 dots only allow me to pin your face to the top for us.
Oh God, no need to do that.
Sorry, I'm sharing it right now. Access. Did you get it, Drew?
Let's see. Yep, I'm good.
Okay.
All righty, so I will go ahead and, so yeah, I have assembled a very brief presentation. I know we're only got 30 minutes and we're tracking a little behind, so I'll make sure everyone can get on with their evening as quickly as possible here. So let me just go ahead and hopefully everyone, let's see, how do I, where can I share my window here? screen too. Is that what I want?
You want to share? There
Yep.
you go.
Hopefully everyone can see the title slide. It says Tunbridge Village Scoping Study.
It's coming in clear.
Everyone seeing that? Wonderful. All right. So yeah, so this is kind of the final step in a typical scoping studies process, particularly that's supported by the VTrans Municipal Assistance section. So generally speaking, in line with the public meeting process, and then just kind of the vote of approval or endorsement for the findings of the study. We always like to bring our findings to a town select board or city council, what have you. Share the results of the study, particularly around the recommendation of a preferred alternative, and inform you all about what's next to come. So this is just, as it has been a little bit since we've engaged with you all, I figured I'd just provide a quick project overview, summarize the development of alternatives that were considered as part of this study, and then conclude with the kind of recommendation of a preferred alternative for the study. So here's just a quick look at that exact agenda. Hopefully this is not new information for everyone, but if you need to stop me at any point, please feel free to speak up, and I'd be happy to take questions throughout, and then I'll of course hold time at the end for and just a general open discussion and any final questions. So again, my name is Drew Gingras. I'm with VHB. We're the selected consulting firm to support the town and the Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission via Rita Cito, operating as a municipal project manager. We've been working with Janet and Kevin, serving kind of an advisory committee role in addition to Rita and Sarah. And I've been supported by Jen and Elizabeth. Some of you may recognize those names actually at the first public meeting. My wife went into labor on the day that we were supposed to hold that, so I was unable to attend. But I'm pleased to report I still have a happy and healthy 1-year-old boy at home who's wreaking havoc on all things, any and everything. So quick recap of the project area. The study area rather went from Potash Hill Road up to Recreational Road, just north of Spring Road, and the bridge over the White River there along 110. This was kind of the full area. Originally, the project was scoped to extend to the recreation fields, but that was there was not really public support to continue that. There was far more interest within the village area, the village district, to really investigate opportunities for better pedestrian facilities in the village. And given the ongoing issues with the slope stabilization of that road, there was, I think, basically it was pretty quickly discovered that there was kind of a bigger need along that road in the form of roadway rehabilitation prior to considering any sort of widening or additional facilities along it. So as with any scoping study, as it gets underway, one of the critical first steps is to define what is called the purpose and need statement for the project. And I always like to refer to this as kind of the North Star for the effort. If we are not abiding by the defined purpose and need, then we are not, in my opinion, doing the service that we signed up to do for the project. So in this case, just a quick recap of this project's purpose was to identify and prioritize improvements for pedestrian safety, accessibility, and connectivity within Tunbridge Village and among its many destinations, being obviously the town offices, the public library, the general store, the fairgrounds, etc. Beyond that, we like to pinpoint, bulleted project needs. Needs were to improve safety and accessibility for pedestrians in the village, enhance mobility opportunities, and seek out solutions to reduce traffic speed. This kind of became apparent at the first public meeting held back in October 2023, known as the Local Concerns Meeting. In addition to the desire for pedestrian facilities and safer facilities to walk about the village, there was also a stated need to address driver speeds. And it's very limited. We have very limited options on what we can do, particularly along a state route. This is an issue throughout the state, and it's many kind of hamlets and villages that the state's very familiar with. They are hesitant to place any sort of pieces of infrastructure related to traffic calming or slowing driver speeds that then will require additional maintenance. And so it is a little bit of a point of friction, but we're working on guidance right now and future guidance for statewide in particular around this kind of land use context of a rural village. So that we wanted to speak to that and do what we could, understanding there's kind of limited scope in which we could address that project need. So jumping right in to the alternatives that were considered, we did consider 3 alternatives, and those were a 6-foot concrete sidewalk. And so I've kind of shown here an exemplary photo just north in Chelsea here, Vermont 110, with a sidewalk, albeit a narrower one than what we'd want to consider here in the town. And then kind of an end-to-end layout view up top there of the alternative. So this first alternative would be a 6-foot wide concrete sidewalk. It would be inclusive of pedestrian crossings at both the town offices and the public library. And these alternatives have been kind of tweaked here and there based on input from community members and residents that came out and attended the meetings for this project. You know, understanding that there are extreme sensitivities to kind of the shoulder and its use of informal on-street parking, recognizing that there's limited opportunities along 110 through the project area to accommodate parked vehicles. So being sensitive to that, you'll see that kind of come through in the other alternatives that were considered, and where we kind of pulled back on a couple of things like those kind of gateway and safety improvements or enhancement opportunities. So this first alternative looks at a sidewalk extending from Potash Hill Road to the general store. It would be 6 feet wide, and we'd have crossings at those kind of key destinations to the town offices, the town hall, the public library. And then obviously it would exist along the east side between those extents of the general store and Potash Hill. And what's happening at the crossings there, and this is kind of one of the boundaries we were able to work within for traffic calming, and those are what is shown, and albeit I apologize if it's difficult to see not knowing the screen you're looking at, but those are what are called curb extensions, also known as bump outs, where you basically seek to shorten the crossing for pedestrians and bring them more into view of driving motorists. So because this kind of narrows the travelway and the view shed for motorists, they're less comfortable driving at higher rates of speeds. So this is considered a reasonable countermeasure when you don't really have the opportunity to install something like a speed hump or a speed table. Again, there might be, you know, a change in direction at the state level with what they're willing to do along state routes through settings like this, but that could be a little further down the line and would require a little bit of coordination with them as the owners of the road. But that's alternative 1 there. Alternative 2 is the same extent, and this was really explored just to really understand what exactly are the extents that we're willing to go to with an off-road facility. So this investigated an 8 to 10 foot wide paved path. This alternative, frankly, was quickly, it was evaluated, it was laid out, as you can see. But understanding the additional impacts, given the additional width required for the path, and not necessarily a need to accommodate bicyclists in an off-road facility, this alternative really wasn't supported. You'll see that later on the slide where I summarize our second public meeting. And then the third alternative that was developed was very similar to alternative 1, with the exception of it extends north of the general store. So that's what you're seeing here in the layout plan up at the top of the screen. The example photo here is from Waitsfield, where it kind of shows you what you could expect for a sidewalk that needs to change sides of the street to continue. And so this alternative was also presented back in August at the alternatives presentation. And it accommodated kind of a need for that off-street parking on the west side of the road, given the lack of really substantial off-road parking for the residents along the east side. And then understanding there was some constraints there by the slope failure as a result of Irene back in 2011. And beyond that, there was a little bit more sensitivity to the general store and the space that's utilized for parking there at their driveway access. So this was another one that was considered. It would eventually tie into the existing sidewalk network. But what we did with to the north there at the bridge, what we did with all of these alternatives is we plugged them into a fairly comprehensive evaluation matrix and looked at impacts to multimodal or active transportation, walking and biking accommodations, traffic considerations, and looked at whether or not they're really meeting the purpose and need and meeting these kind of metrics for evaluation. And as you do with any of these studies, you evaluate them against the no build option, which is basically the quote do nothing option. And you'll quickly see that you pretty easy to understand what you get in a no build option. You get no real change, no real difference, whether you're looking at, considerations around moving people, transportation, or around impacts to environmental, historic, archaeological, any wetland streams, rivers, waterways impacts. This is kind of the summary here of what we'd be mindful of. Right away is always a big one. If anything with any of these alternatives, we would expect solely temporary impacts, which basically means construction impacts. So we wouldn't be changing anything outside of the state right of way permanently, especially in that alternative 1 or alternative 3. The impacts, if any, outside of state right of way would be very minor and would be exclusively temporary. So that was encouraging when we saw we had kind of enough space to accommodate the project. And then the last thing we always look at is kind of community character, and this is a little bit more subjective than the other objective metrics seen on the last screen and the one prior. Is the project improving community aesthetics? Is it in line with the regional transportation plan, particularly around opportunities to improve active transportation options for residents and visitors who may want to arrive in the village, walk about, attend the fair, access the general store, park their car, and go over the Spring Road covered bridge and whatnot. And then perhaps most importantly at the bottom there, does the alternative satisfy the purpose and need? And you can see all of these that were considered did that. Obviously, the no build option would not accomplish the purpose and need. So quick summary of the second public meeting that was held last August. I will say in my 13-year career, this was the highest attended public meeting I've ever been a part of, which was shocking, but it was always excited to see an extremely engaged community. I think this project has a lot of energy around it, and for good reason. I think it's a good project, but there are very reasonable concerns that were vocalized at both the first public meeting, the local concerns meeting, as well as this one. There is a concern for that kind of shoulder parking, and so our alternatives were adjusted to accommodate that and make sure we were minimizing any of those impacts to the best degree possible while still accommodating a pedestrian facility. There was also some understandable concerns over winter maintenance. If you build a sidewalk, who's going to maintain it? Is that on the town? Is that on the residents? Is that on the state? How does that happen? And so at the meeting's conclusion, we did take a straw poll of the 35 attendees that remained. We had 21 votes in support of alternative 1 or 3, alternative 1 getting 14 votes, alternative 3 getting 7, and the no build option actually received a fair number of votes. Again, a first time for me that I have seen something like that garner support, receiving 14 votes to do nothing. So following up with that meeting, we wanted to bring kind of the results of this as well as our alternatives analysis to the select board, understanding, I believe at the time that the select board members were not able to attend the meeting. So we held a follow-up debrief where we shared kind of a very similar presentation to what I'm providing right now, as well as what we heard from the community, in particular, kind of that informal straw poll. And we were provided direction that the select board kind of endorsed proceeding further, at least studying alternative 1 as the preferred alternative. So we went ahead and went forward and are recommending, as a result of the study, alternative 1. So I'm going to step through this at a more zoomed in level to what you saw on the slides. So again, starting in the south at Potash Hill Road, we have our first crossing, and this is really to provide access to those destinations along the west side of the road. Additionally, you can see these kind of curb extensions, that roadway narrowing shown. We understand that there was parking sensitivity given to the food pantry and the pickup on the east side of the road, but there are requirements out there that you cannot park vehicles within X amount of feet of a pedestrian crossing, and that's purely for sight lines. In particular, understanding the sight lines coming into the village from the south are already fairly challenged given kind of the vertical alignment of the roadway. We would recommend not allowing parking in advance, basically in between this crossing location and Potash Hill Road, so that pedestrians wishing to cross there do have clear sight lines to drivers, and drivers have clear sight lines to them. But from there, we were able to restore and maintain a 7-foot wide paved and striped shoulder to maintain on-street parking. With any project like this too, I think you'd get some formalization of that shoulder, that creation of space. You know, we did hear some concerns about damages to lawns. And I think to formalize that shoulder, that edge of pavement would really provide drivers and people wishing to park their vehicles along the roadway with a reasonable amount of paved space to do that, all the while still having a grass buffer between the travel lanes, the parking, and the potential sidewalk. So continuing north, the next crossing location would occur at the library. So all the way up until that crossing point, you'll see that 7-foot shoulder is maintained, with the exception of immediately at the library where that crossing is desired. We had originally drafted an option in the interest of being sensitive to the concern about driver speeds, where we narrowed that shoulder to 4 feet of pavement and widened that grass buffer. And that was to provide that same kind of visual narrowing of the roadway. But we, upon discussing that with the project team, you know, understood and could absolutely sympathize with the sensitivity around maintaining that opportunity to park along the road. So we kind of explained that trade-off that, well, you know, we can certainly draft it with wider shoulders to accommodate parking, but what comes with that is that we're not really doing too much to attempt to slow drivers. And so we vocalized that concern. It was heard, but the decision was made to move forward with maintaining parking, given that was what we heard from very strongly from the community members, that is frankly a necessity and a necessary amenity to accommodate folks with visitors and just wishing to park along 110 in this section. So continuing north to the final section here, the sidewalk would conclude just south of the general store. As you'll recall, alternative 3 continues it north, but this option terminates here, which was really frankly within the boundaries of the original scope of the sidewalk. So, and it's also sensitive to those kind of parking concerns that were voiced north of the general store. So beyond that, before I kind of open it up for discussion, any questions or comments, I'll say the only other thing that really stood out to us during that second alternatives meeting and the second public meeting where we discussed alternatives and when we debriefed as a project team was that there was energy for the project, understanding there was a fair number of hands raised for a no build. You know, after some follow-up conversations and some outreach, you know, Janet and Kevin in the community, there was somebody who vocalized, you know, is there an opportunity to phase the project where we could start with the crosswalks and start with the bump outs and then add the sidewalk, and then, you know, if it goes well and the community really likes it, maybe then we consider extending it north. So there has been, I think, some positive discussion after the original couple of public meetings that have since happened, and that information is included in the scoping report that we will obviously, you know, kind of tie up and put a bow on and submit as final at the conclusion of, you know, after the conclusion of this meeting. But with that, I wanted to open it up for any questions or comments, and again, just share the intent here is to hopefully basically inform you of the study at a high level, on the off chance you haven't been able to read the study, and just kind of seek your endorsement of the study as it stands and the conclusions therein.
Drew, I assume you must have had to send it through VTrans. Did they have any feedback, any concerns about the bump outs from a winter plowing standpoint or anything like that?
And they did, yeah, and I think that they're pretty just binary on any sort of improvements, and so that would be, but we didn't want to take them out of the recommendation of the preferred alternative, understanding the sensitivities to driver speed. So that was left in, but there is obviously, if the project were to move forward into design, I mean, they will be a stakeholder in the project, understanding it is their right of way. And I would venture to say a project like this would go through the municipal assistance section. So every milestone submission of design plans and permitting review and right of way would go through the state. So they would be able to be a part of that coordination. But yeah, they expressed, 15 feet is our minimum for plowing with a deployed shoulder blade.
Yep.
So it's certainly something we'd have to be sensitive to, but I think the agency is really starting to see the push and pull between wanting 15-foot lanes everywhere and seeing the safety realities of our roadways and understanding that, that is likely, while easy to blow through with a plow in the winter, for the other, who knows how long winter is depending on where you are, but for the other X number of months of the year, those wide lanes are really, you know, posing their fair share of concerns and issues as well.
Drew, I wondered is there a metric sort of for northern New England, how much it costs to maintain to essentially clear sidewalks in winters?
I don't have a figure off the cuff. Rita, I saw you were maybe about to say something there.
I was gonna say I don't either. I think it depends on different towns and how they approach them. I know Woodstock, they have a sidewalk policy that property owners are responsible for clearing their own sidewalks after, 24 hours or whatever after a winter storm. Other towns, Hartford, they have their own sidewalk equipment to kind of, clear the sidewalks there. So I think there's like different options.
Yeah, it really depends on where you are. You know, I live in Williston, Vermont, in a neighborhood, and there's a sidewalk along my property. And for a number of years, we have a neighborhood, association, and folks were disagreeing about who would maintain the sidewalks and if we should hire a private company to plow them. And eventually, as of 2 years ago, the town has added our sidewalk network to their sidewalk plowing plan. But prior to that, it was either on the, kind of an unspoken agreement. And I found, as someone with a snowblower and children that regularly walk through to access bus stops, that, neighbors were very willing to clear sidewalks who owned a snowblower. And so I think it all kind of depends on where you are, the community you're in, and the agreements that you come to, either as a town, if you did want to seek out maintenance equipment. The one thing I do know is the state does not maintain sidewalks along any sidewalks along state routes. So generally speaking, it's on the responsibility either of the town or the residents therein to come to an agreement on maintenance.
And for, I guess you could say, when towns typically apply for the next step of like full design of a sidewalk as well as construction through the VTrans grant program, there usually comes with like a finance and maintenance agreement. Once it's done, the town acknowledges that, technically they're responsible for the maintenance of the sidewalks. And then whatever the town does, whether they have a sidewalk, winter maintenance policy, in one way or another, is then kind of up to you guys to determine afterwards. Do you know how does Chelsea clear their sidewalks? Anybody know? That might be an interesting question to ask them.
Yeah. Sidewalks, they go down through.
Is there also, I wonder if there's a sort of sweet spot or the opposite of that with, like Chelsea or Tunbridge, where V-Trans potentially with wing plows would push all the snow right onto the sidewalk every time.
I've experienced that in my neighborhood as well. Yeah, it's tricky. It depends on the snowfall. This past winter that didn't occur, I think where I am, but the prior it did. So yeah, it is certainly something you need to be, and the state is mindful of that. And so yeah, I think Rita, that's a great recommendation to potentially connect with the town of Chelsea and see what sort of agreement or maintenance plan they have in place.
So with the existing, 3-4 foot sidewalk that currently exists on the east side of 110 in the winter time, like what does it get maintained during the winter, or it just, people just kind of walk and kind of, pat it down and make their own paths?
There's no maintenance. It's just the track gets,
Walked over and flattened. Gotcha.
popular and in certain sections of it. And so I had so the question about having crosswalks or phasing in, is that something that we have to who do we have to talk to about that? Is that the state?
So, Drew, I don't know if this would be a good time to kind of like potentially next steps in terms of, here are some options for the town to kind of move forward or, you know. So the VTrans Bike Ped grant, which is the popular grant that most towns apply for funding to create sidewalks, that is going to be released in the next couple of weeks. If the town was interested in kind of like a phased approach with just working on the crosswalks, that might be a potential small scale grant scope. The small scale grant, I think, has a maximum of $150,000 with the 50-50 match. But it is strictly construction, very limited permitting other than, the VTrans highway access permit. So that's an option. If the town is interested in sort of like the full shebang of, the preferred alternative one, the town could apply for the full design and construction grant. That is, with the federal money, that is a commitment, designing sidewalks and going to construction. That is at least a 5-year duration or more, depending on
Depending,
project
yeah. I mean,
scope.
this is a relatively straightforward project that wouldn't trigger too much permitting, and if we can avoid things like, it'd be relatively low on the NEPA scale. I think it's likely a categorical exclusion, which is the lowest tier. It might even be a categorical exclusion light. But that and then right away, the NEPA process and right away are generally what extends the life of a contract. So if those are relatively minor efforts, you could be looking at a shorter term.
What's nice is there is,
Design and construction.
existing sidewalk there already.
Right.
So it wouldn't be as challenging as if you were starting from scratch with like no sidewalk in front of people's properties.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, and just the project area itself is not it's relatively flat. It's not terribly complex. So that's always a nice bonus as well.
you don't have to relocate utilities.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot to like. That's another good point, Rita. Utilities, NEPA, and right away are generally the three things that slow things down. And there's not a lot of concerns here in this project area, so that would be encouraging.
Mhm.
As far as Janet, I mean, I think one of the critical elements of your question is I'm hesitant as the kind of professional consultant, so to speak, to recommend just the crossings. I think if you did them, you would want to at least make sure they were connecting to and from something. You don't really want crosswalks to nowhere. There are some informal crosswalks out there that just kind of go from, grassy shoulder to grassy shoulder. But from a accessibility perspective, you need to make sure that any and all pedestrian facilities are accessible and are viable pedestrian access routes. And so there might be a little bit more research needed to determine if that is truly viable to just install the crossings.
Well, any of the installments of them, if the town was going to apply for the grant, would have to meet whatever the design standards required for crosswalks.
Right. So something like thinking about what you see on the screen, my recommendation would be if it is the town's desire to endorse and proceed with alternative one and, go after a bike ped grant, as Rita said, it quite literally is the season that grant opportunity is going to open up, typically in early May. And that's through the state and Peter Pochop. And so he's pretty active in this space. And I would say go after the whole thing. If you did want to phase it, I think that you'd kind of need to determine as a town, would we want to do kind of a crossing and then continue up to the general store between the library and the general store? Or would we want to kind of go in the south end here and put the crossing and the sidewalk down here? But then you kind of have those kind of discontinuous segments that generally you see in a lot of places and aren't terribly desirable. So something to think about and noodle on if it would truly be a benefit relative to what you're trying to accomplish in the village.
Mhm. And also like with this study, it does not commit the town to actually moving forward. Although, I mean, that is the hope, right? Because that was part of like one of the reasons for applying for the scoping project was to kind of evaluate what are the options, and then, hopefully something with the preferred alternative would resonate and kind of, have the town move in that direction to improve, pedestrian accessibility through the village. So, but I'm also, if I'm available to assist the town with the grant application, if that does come up, whichever path you may like to move forward to, or if you feel like this is kind of too soon, there's another round of bike ped grants that come out in the fall, the Transportation Alternatives Program, or you can wait till next year. So those are some funding options there to kind of consider as you kind of munch on this to kind of finalize the study.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I think it was you last meeting, that about the flashing.
Yeah, the signs, yeah.
The signs that flash for speed.
Yes, so the rectangular rapid flashing beacons would,
I think I'm sorry, Rita, to cut you. Did you say signs that measure speed?
Measure speed, yes.
oh, the measure
Okay.
speed, okay. Sorry, thank you for that.
Yeah, no,
So
I did.
the radar speed feedback signs, yeah, Mariah reached out. I prepared a map for you to do the application. There's no necessarily a V-Trans grant specifically for those, but I have seen, and we've inquired, other towns like Waitsfield, Warren have recently purchased those through various grants. Mariah, I can forward you those emails as well. Different funding streams. One was like part of the ACCD Downtown Transportation Funds, was kind of part of that scope, like in a bigger project. So it wasn't necessarily like a standalone grant just for the radar speed feedback signs.
What if we decide to just buy the signs and not get a grant?
Yep, you can do that.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then,
You'll
yeah.
just need, because it is state right away, you'll just need permission from the state to install them.
Yes.
Yeah, that's already
Yes,
in motion.
right.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yep, you can try those first to phase it in and see how that goes. And then we already did a speed study, right? We did a speed study as part of this, as part of this as well. So it would be interesting to see, once you do install those radar speed feedback signs, reassess or reevaluate what the traffic speeds are through afterwards to kind of do like a comparison. So
If we apply for the grant for alternative one, what's our window to complete that? We're committed to it, but I mean, is there a way to do that in phases essentially?
no, I think if you're gonna go through the full shebang, that would take, a minimum of 4 years is sort of the recommended time frame for the grant for, hiring a design consultant to like fully get the construction plans, go through the environmental review. Right away will be fairly minimal, I think, because it'll all be within the state right of way. And then just go to construction.
What's the matching on those grants? Is it, did you
They're
say
80-20.
80-20? So the town would, so if they, like the estimate, I mean, I know it's a very loose estimate on the first design was 420, I think, so the town would be liable for approximately 20%.
Yep.
That.
And usually I kind of recommend towns, obviously when the scoping study is completed, there's kind of a general cost estimate. We use that to apply with the budget. I also try to make sure there's some contingency in there. Sometimes, well, not sometimes, actually, recently, a lot of the projects even with good intentions of, increasing the contingency in the budget, costs have really just increased beyond our, anybody's control just with the current supply and demand. So other towns, once we get a much better cost estimate, we can go back to VTrans and request for, additional funding to kind of help complete the project. So kind of like an enhancement to the overall project budget. And
this,
it's a reimbursement. It's a reimbursement base program. I usually recommend if the town does apply for it, I recommend the following year and in each of your town budgets to kind of allocate your match each year just to kind of make sure it gets covered. However you would like to put in, but at least just kind of start building that kitty for at least the match portion.
But you said it's a reimbursement, so would the town have to say, come up with 500,000 and then eventually we'd get reimbursed for 400,000?
Right. Yeah. So obviously the bill won't come all at once, right? So you'll have the
The
design
town wouldn't have to put that up, right, though, Rita? Is it the state that puts it up and then they're reimbursed by the Fed?
Yeah,
Or
so
is-
this, so any costs incurred by the town would get through a requisition through VTrans to get reimbursed 80% of whatever the current cost. And so those invoices would be kind of gradual. Engineering design invoices would come and you'd pay them and we put a batch in. Obviously the biggest cash flow issue will be during actual construction. So kind of like, how when you guys do your FEMA work or your structures, grants and culverts, things like that, it'll be very similar. So.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Yes, Rick.
My understanding is you're gonna put in a 7-foot parking area along the road. And then you're gonna have a grassy part and then a 6-foot walkway.
That's that number one proposal.
How much, how big is, or how wide is the grassy part?
It varies, but it's never less than 4 feet wide.
So you take that's what, 16, 17, 18 feet all the way down through?
Just like it is now.
Well, no, it's not exactly like it is now.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right, you're correct, it's not exactly like it is now, but it's all within the state right of way.
Right, but doesn't that mean that you're gonna have to move all the telephone poles?
I don't,
I don't see
No.
how you can get
Well, when
13
they-
or 14 feet. And you're talking from the white line, right?
Generally, yeah. 7-foot shoulder from the white stripe and then a grass buffer in the sidewalk. So yeah, that would be, I mean, I don't believe there are any locations where we're showing the concrete sidewalk going directly through a utility pole. But that would need to be, obviously, when we get into design, it would be surveyed. And so we would know those precise locations and, we would seek out mitigations to, if we would be aligning the sidewalk through a utility pole, is there an opportunity to, shift the sidewalk ever so slightly to avoid that? Perhaps that results in a temporary property impact. Maybe it doesn't. But those would be more minute details that we need to seek out, address during design. But as it's laid out conceptually, we do not anticipate any significant impacts to utilities. And I think you can kind of see, similar to what you have going on with Chelsea, obviously they don't have the same shoulder, but that's what's shown on the right side there, or in the lower right corner here.
That doesn't give you 7 foot, doesn't really give you much room to park. Even if you got a truck or something with a trailer, you're gonna be very close to that white line where you're liable, supposedly.
Have to put it on the grass, I guess.
Right, but what I'm saying is you're gonna put a curb in there.
Nope.
You're gonna be rubbing up against that and you're gonna be awful close to that white line.
No curb, sir.
Didn't you say something about a blacktop curb there to the grass? You're just gonna go
No.
grass to the,
We would not want to propose a curb, with the exception of at the pedestrian crossings. But otherwise, so if you can see my cursor here, where we're showing the crosswalks, we would curb that. All other areas, we would not want to create a closed drainage system, because then you're introducing drainage structure, you're changing drainage patterns, rather than just letting any sort of stormwater sheet flow into those grassy areas that infiltrate as it currently does. Yeah, we would not be proposing a curb, so you could still kind of informally pull onto the grass if you did have a wider vehicle.
So what do you need from the select board tonight? Anything?
Just, I guess, somewhat of an informal endorsement of the study's findings and agreement with the preferred alternative relative to the purpose and need of the project. Understanding that, any sort of endorsement, as Rita said, doesn't commit to anything. My professional recommendation would be to endorse the preferred alternative, and then speak amongst yourselves as select board, as a community, and determine if you'd want to seek out those grant opportunities, which it sounds like you have a supportive, regional commission willing to help you out on those grant applications. So that would be my recommendation. But as far as what we need from you, I mean, the study will be kind of wrapped up and put a bow on and submitted for your records. But I think, any sort of endorsement, informal or otherwise, of alternative one as the recommended preferred alternative would be.
But if we were to endorse number one, do we have to then proceed and go through with anything?
No.
All right.
No.
So we need to wrap up the study and to submit it as final, and our final payment, we have to accept the work done by our consultants,
Yep.
VHB. And Two Rivers as our grant management consultant. We
Right.
need to accept the work they have done, has met the scoping study that we requested of them. So we need to endorse that.
I think you need to make, if you want.
Whatever Marianne said.
Can you try to say it?
I guess that we'll accept the grant study
Yes,
and go from there,
as fulfilling their contract.
and they fulfill that contract.
That's what he said.
My services are no longer required, is what you're telling me.
We'll miss you, Drew.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody will, but maybe
All right.
someone.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept their study, and what else did you say?
So we'll move to grant closure now for the specific scoping grant that we had.
Move to grant closure, okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for your time. Thank you for listening. And I'll flash up Rita and my contact information just in case that's not at hand. If any questions should arise, or if you need any support, we have grant writers. Rita also offered to assist as well. But Rita and I will handle kind of the closeout, and I'll plan to submit the final report to her and Janet and Kevin and Mariah and the project team. Yeah. Thank you all. It's been an
Thank you
absolute
for
pleasure
having
working
us.
with. Yeah, it's been a pleasure working with you all. It's been a really, really enjoyable study. So thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care, everybody.
You too. All right, Baxter's not here, is he?
Brenda can't say thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right, next is supposed to be the town garage discussion with Baxter Doty. Ian's, he's not
Table
here.
that.
We're gonna, table that.
Remember, we were gonna have a future projects, future type conversation at some point, so we should just invite Baxter to that. Maybe.
Yes, yeah. He came to last meeting, we didn't talk about it. I guess he got discouraged.
Put that on. I'll add Baxter to that.
You got discouraged.
All right, let's move on to Trails Committee update. Jonathan Bicknell,
So,
there he is.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, John.
So, yeah, got a little cough. I figured I wouldn't expose you guys. Stay home today. Stay on the Zoom. But I think is Sean in the room from?
He's right here, yes.
Yeah, I think maybe you remember him from the winter. He introduced the organization. He has since not only walked the trails, the legal trails, but he's made an assessment of really what he sees as necessary maintenance. And I think I don't know if you're prepared, Sean, to present those, but he's presented those at the Trails Committee the last couple meetings, and thought it was time to bring this to the select board for consideration. So I'll let Sean take it from here.
Yeah, so I just do a brief update on the 4 legal trails. Go one by one through what I found. I'll start with Falls Hill Trail. It's in the best shape of the 4, I'd say. The initial ascent is in pretty good shape, really. With work done, you know how long ago it was done to create the drainages all the way up it. It held pretty well. I don't think you need to look at it for a while. But up at the top, right where there's the sign that says public trail, there is some drainage erosion issues coming from the neighboring property, I assume, that enters the road. And it, as you'll see with all of these trails, they meet the road trail bed and create an erosion down the bed. So that one's the easiest to fix. There's, obviously that property where a lot of it's coming from, that's not where you would be doing the work, but to get it off of Falls Hill, you could just install a water bar. These big drainages can just be pushed off. There's a ravine right there. And that would take care of a lot of that stuff right there up the top. And
were you assessing all these trails from like a usage standpoint, like pedestrian use or other usage?
Right, I mean, just from the pedestrian perception, yeah, I mean, you could go a lot more robust and run a machine and regrade a lot of these, but that's a bigger project that would go through different permissions and that sort of thing. Right. But this is just really to stop the bleeding on a lot of these, because these trails are gonna get washed out pretty soon. This one's actually in the best shape. There's not a whole lot you can do about the water coming into it, I don't think, unless we know who that is. Figure out a way to get the water off before it ever comes on the trail, but once it comes onto what the town is responsible for or has, you just get it off right there and then fix a lot of these problems so it doesn't continue to go down. So that's Falls Hill. You could do that in one day.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. So I walked the trail the other day, so the water bars that are there.
Yeah.
Are really in good shape.
I think so, on the ascent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So where are you talking about? You need
Up at the top, where the sign
right
is,
where the
where it
sign
flattens out. Yeah, there's water coming on in a drain that's been made in the trail bed. And you just insert a water bar to.
So it's actually at the sign.
Yeah, you'd have to do it right after the sign.
Yeah.
A lot of it's further on. But
Yes.
Yeah,
I can't manage that.
Yeah, and essentially you'd be doing the same sort of drain that goes all the way up the ascent. That's what I would do. I just make a little dip that gets it off. Because what happens is it just creates a stream and then never gets it off.
Yeah.
So that would be done in a couple hours, with people. So that's kind of the simplest one. The crossroad is a bit more complicated. So I looked at that one. What has happened is, anyone knows it, is there's an old roadbed that has essentially become the stream, right? And over time, people have drifted onto the neighboring property, which I think the sentiment is to We wanted to get back onto the actual town street portion of it. So what's happened there is it's become, as particularly during rain events, big flood events, big gully of a torrent of water will come down and it's essentially made this old roadbed a stream bed. And you know, the most robust way to fix it would be to take a machine, dig a big trench on one side, and you know, have a 4 or 5 foot trail on the other side. That's more road construction. However, if you just want foot traffic and get traffic off of where it's going on the neighboring property, you could build basically just a little side hill, 2 foot, 3 foot trail on the, or if you're looking downhill, the right side, because most of the water is on the left. It does deviate a little bit, and you could essentially just put a 2 foot treadway to walk on, open it up by just digging with hatchets. You wouldn't have to deal with the water much, which is, you know, if you can help it, you don't want to. Triggers some issues. There might be a couple places where you want to divert away, but you could essentially just build a small side hill trail right there in the road, existing road. It would be much smaller, and you wouldn't really be able to take anything else down it other than foot traffic. But maybe that's good anyway. And at the bottom, there's a couple streams. I suggested there's 2 crossings that I would put bridges in. Really 4 places. It's kind of a question of whether you want them or not. You can hop over them. The ones that go to the very bottom are, I would say, more needed. It's harder to keep your feet dry. There's a couple smaller drains up at the top. On the which side is that? Which side is the one with the big gully? The road.
What do you mean?
What's the road that comes in from? Just cut off on my map.
Oh, Monarch Hill.
Monarch Hill, yeah. So the Monarch Hill side, there's a few drains up at the top, which you would just dig them out to get the water to continue down its current drain. It's just been washed out and filled with weeds and sticks and it's filled up. And that's actually filtering pushing a lot of the water into the existing stream bed. So you clean up those drainages, put that trail section that you would, you know, reinsert to put the foot traffic back on the road trail bed. That's about 750 feet of it, and then a couple bridges at the bottom to get people across if you desire. And the other side's in better shape. There's a little bit of drainage stuff, but it's a lot drier. It's not nearly the problem the other side is. So that's the crossroad. The Orchard Road is actually in pretty good shape. There's 2 crossings there. There's like a 16-foot and a 20-foot section or so where I would put bridges. There's a little bit of drainage on the first one. The second one is wet. And I think the best way to divert that one is to just do a little bit of drainage right by where that bridge crossing would be, and push the water just to go back in the stream because it's kind of filtering out a little bit.
When you mention a bridge, describe what your bridge is.
Yeah, so the bridges that we use or that we would just, you know, propose are they're not impactful. You just put them on 6x6 sills, 6x6x8s, and cut them in half, or 6x6x12s, cut them in half, or 6 foot chunk. And they basically just sit right on the ground. You level them a tiny bit. You don't have to displace anything. And then you set stringers on top of those, and then we put rough cut hemlock because it's not slick. You can use other stuff, but you know it's kind of the easiest and it lasts a long time, and it's not slick. And you can make those really any bit. And I think the Orchard Road side, you can put them to the side so you get a tractor through. Just off the one side. And a little bit of drainage work by that second bridge. Everything else is in decent shape. You know, it's good. You know, it's in work. There's
Todd has a question.
Just clarification for those who might not be. I think you're talking from going from land going over to John X Maria's side.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So the second crossing is the more complicated one.
Yeah,
with
that's
drainage.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And this first crossing it's not.
Yeah.
The drainage is
no well.
Yeah. And then and then there's some trees down, but really by Orchard Road's not too bad. Yeah, and then the final one, Baptist Hill, it's a little more complicated. So there I came from the Stratford Road side. That one has on the Stratford Road side quite a bit of drainage issues where some of the existing drains have failed and it's caused, if you've ever been down there, you have these big drains that are forming in the trail itself. And the way to deal with that is you just need to go to the source of it, put a drain to get the water off. You can do a culvert, but really none of them are good candidates for it really, because they're not streams and more seeps and, you know, it's not like it's below the wet. It's not a good fit for a culvert. So really, some of them have existing repaired drains where it obviously used to be that and they just filled up over time. And then, you know, if you really want to have it not collect any more water, you might, you know, fill it in a little bit or just get the water so it's no longer going to channel in that low spot. And that goes for, well, there's a few spots that do that along the way, probably 1,000 feet that have this channelization that's happened, but you can still walk through there pretty well if that's what the goal is. The problem is the water has nowhere to go, so it saturates the ground, so it's wetter than it really needs to be. So if you just get a drain and put the water off, you know, there still might be an old drain, but it's not as wet because there's not volume of water coming through there, and it's not saturating. So, and then you go.
Is the seat essentially working towards the stream then? I mean, then it gets stuck on the road.
Yeah, it's essentially what's happened on all of these, and you see this in every old road you get, is that it's a 200-year-old road. It's gone down a foot, and then water used to just there used to be nothing there, so it used to go to the stream in this case, which is right next to it or pretty close to it. And it just gets caught in the old roadbed, the old trail, and becomes a stream over time if it's not managed. Because those drains work fine, you can see them work well in certain places. And then when they fail, the road becomes a stream. And so you just have to turn it back into the road. But by often just using the old existing drains, on this case particularly, there's quite a few places. There's one that's wet and spongy, you know, that isn't an old drain. It's by the bridge. Is that where it turns? I think a little bit. So that's kind of wet there. That one, you know, it's not an old drain. It's just probably just wet soil. It's not too bad. I mean, you know, this time of year is the worst, and you can still cross it. And then there's the spot where the trail, you know, is closed. You know, right next to Orchard Road. The 1,000 feet sort of up toward Orchard Road. So that one, you need some clearing, but really it's only a couple hundred feet. And then there's some more drainage work in there using existing drains. And then up at the top, it's a big pad of, you know, vegetation. That one, you know, there's a few ways because that one is a wetland as well. So it's, you know, I would defer to the town about how to deal with that exact spot. As far as what they would want to do, but I went through there. You can walk on it. You know, it's the only way to get it really dry is to dig up the plants and maybe, you know, put bog bridging down is an idea, but it might not be. You might not really need to do anything depending on if you're okay with it being kind of wet. But I don't know that it's really able to be fixed just because it's a wet area. You might just have to get 6x6s with punch-in is what we call it, whereas the two planks and you just walk on top of it for 100 feet or so. Because that area is the most wet. And I don't know that there's really a whole lot you can do to get rid of it. It's just wet there.
You just mentioned something that intrigued me back years ago when our yard would get wet. Earlier than now, when there's still snow, but the path would get wet. We just throw down some boards and walk on the board.
Yeah. And the nice way to keep them, you can use the 6x6s and just elevate everything, and it only touches the ground for 3 square feet. And you never really have to dig. And that sort of is both less impactful to the environment, but also it doesn't trigger certain displacement for various things.
But that's a standard practice.
Yeah. I mean, you can put them down, and people use the corduroy. You ever see people put in a bunch of sticks? You know, that's kind of a temporary fix. We don't usually do that. We would actually put an elevated function there, but it's more permanent. Yeah. So yeah, those are the 4.
So you don't need permitting from A&R for that sort of thing.
So that is, I will defer on that one. It depends on exactly what you're doing. You might ask them what the thresholds are. There are certain things that they don't want you to dig a bunch and they don't want you to fill a bunch. But there are certain triggers, and it also kind of depends on if it's actually in a wetland. And it's depending on the area, so you have to look it up, but what I'm proposing is not nearly as robust as something that might. If you wanted to go in and just redo the whole road, you just rent an excavator and go in and dig it up, but that would probably trigger that sort of thing. But not necessarily, it depends on if it's wet.
But your bridge though, that's just sitting on top of the soil, so
Yeah,
that's,
that's why we do it too. And the nice thing about those as well is if a flood comes, which they do apparently every year now, just goes to the side, because you don't actually anchor them in the ground.
Right.
Which, I mean, you can like every bar or something, but it's just gonna lift right off.
Right.
It's everything. Very, and can be moved too if you need to. Yeah, so I had estimates for all, how much it would take a crew by hand to do that. This sort of the lowest end of it, but there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can do it with volunteers, you can do it people down on their own.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the 4. I can take specific questions about them too, things I might have seen. But those are that's a bit of the summary of the 4 I's.
yeah. Any questions? Oh, Tom,
Yeah, so back to Orchard Road, the second crossing, the
Yes.
more complicated one, which we had looked at, Rudy from the planning commission has looked at that. Is the bridge that you're proposing that would go to the left and still allow a tractor to go through? Would that not trigger a permit in your
No.
estimate?
Yeah, because it doesn't, this design doesn't, it's only, I think it's a 250 feet trigger typically.
Correct.
And so this is only 3 square feet, well, the square feet of displacement per side, maybe 6 there, so it's very, that's kind of why we do it too.
Thanks.
And if you're coming from, is that Moody Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're coming from Moody, I would put it on the right, probably.
On the right.
I think, I mean, it's really up to, I think you could do either, but I think a smaller crossing makes more sense. And then the drainage would be on the left, I believe. You could do it to the right and cross under, because the stream kind of goes like this.
Right.
I would do it on the left.
So whether pedestrians were using these trails or if they were still closed, depending on seasonality or legal issues. It sounds like these recommendations would potentially stabilize the trail so they don't get any worse, like they're only gonna get worse, right?
This is to get as much of the wetness out of it as you can. Some of the damage is already done. It would take more, particularly filling in those drains, that requires fill. And a little more displacement, and it depends on if you want to get it. You want to make it a road again, that's caliber, it's a lot more, but if you want to make them walkable, this is really just to dry them out. Really, that saturation is happening because water is flowing into the soil, it's sitting. And even having a little bit of a drain dries out a big section of it. So you don't really have to do much dredging or drain creation. It helps, but hopefully that just creating the drain gets rid of most of that. And this time of year is the worst time to go anyway, so that's kind of stuff.
Brenda,
All your plans, does it take it, we have some big horse events that happen periodically here, so everything you're doing, your bridges, everything will accommodate horses?
It could, if you wanted to build it to that spec, although I think.
Or are you
I would
thinking
move
the
it to
horses just go
sides
through
and
the wet
horses get
part?
through it, the same way that a tractor would cross. None of the places are, I think, would be any issue for a horse. Right, that's not an Orchard Road, isn't really, is it?
No, it's more probably what the horse would do.
Yeah, right, I wouldn't think they'd want to go on a little bridge. You could make it 12 feet wide if you really wanted to. And accommodate one, but I would think you would just put it to the side so that if a person could use it, keep their feet dry, and a horse would be able to go just straight. You could build it to a spec that would carry a horse. And make it, but.
I was just curious, because we get that club that comes here every year, they
Do
got
they-
40-50 horses that might go through.
Sure.
Do they use any of this trail? I didn't.
They've asked.
They've asked, but they haven't.
We haven't lately because they've been closed.
Yeah, and the other one of them is up by Loring. So.
Yeah.
She certainly would consider it if you made your side pass there, you might see horse traffic.
Yeah. It would.
It'd have to be built
Dry it out
to
enough.
accommodate
Horses
them.
would, tear up some of these wet spots, but hopefully that would Yeah.
You know, say if you get it dried out, it wouldn't be as big a deal.
Yeah.
We have a ordinance about events, so you could have some control over larger events.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question for Sean, but I do have, when I walk the, the trail in Falls Hill, I come from our side, of course. So traffic has been through there. It's done a lot of damage to, big ruts and.
Vehicular
stems.
traffic?
Hmm?
Vehicular traffic?
Yeah,
Oh, on Falls Hill.
Falls Hill.
Oh, okay.
So they, I don't know how they went all the way through. I don't know if they started down, because they can get around the stones that are there. Or if they came from our end. But I did take, Sarah, her property has really been damaged. I did take some pictures. I haven't sent them to her. I did talk with Jonathan and he said, I probably should send them because she wanted to be informed if there was damage to her property and what could be done. So I am gonna do that and then see if, she's wanting us to put barriers up so that people couldn't go all the way through. And I don't know what Tim Angel, whether he, cares or whatever about his property, but,
Oh, I think he can.
I haven't talked to him.
Are they just going around those big rocks there on the road?
No, they go down, there's a field that belongs to the owner, actually, of
Yeah.
Falls Hill. And so it's, they use it for the snow machines, I believe.
Okay.
So they've kind of just looped down around and then gotten past those stones. So I guess I'll send her the pictures and see what she wants to do, but I feel like we do have some commitment to the landowners because people are, they don't stop at the sign, either they don't read the sign, they don't care about the sign or whatever. So I guess I'll just, get in touch with her.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
yeah.
John.
Thanks. I just wanted to lodge a request that you consider keeping, I don't know how you define it, the upper portion of Baptist Hill Trail closed to public use. You got a letter from Dan Maddox, who currently farms the property. As most of you know, if you're to comply with the Clean Water Act and keep the cows out of the stream and water the cows when you can't get them access to the stream, it's sort of a complicated process. And recreational use of that part of the trail, just that part of the trail, creates a serious set of conflicts for the agricultural activity, which has been going on for 100 years, but is going on in a more modern form now. I guess I think by general consensus that trail's got its virtues, but it's maybe not the most appealing and publicly valuable of the trail segments. And there are two public access ways into the point where that trail meets the Orchard Road. And there's the Orchard Trail that from Lane goes, and then there's Orchard Road. So there are plenty of public access routes to get to the Orchard Farm. So it's I'm not saying it doesn't have public value, but it's a little bit, and then it I guess finally it dumps out into a paved road without any parking or any particular way of getting access there. I guess you can park up inside go up the driveway. But anyway, the area's been farmed, the trail has been maintained for since the trail existed. And it does present a serious conflict. So anyway, I'm just setting aside the whole question of maintenance and all those issues. I just as a matter of sort of use authorization. ask you to consider the possibility of leaving that trail closed to public use.
Okay, thank you.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes, Jonathan.
So, it seems to me that public use of a public right of way should take priority here. And in fact, I believe that it is prohibited to occupy or obstruct a public right of way, which it sounds like maybe that's what's happening. So anyway, given the choice, it seems to me that granting the public use of their public right of way is takes precedence over private use and private occupation of it.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan Bittner, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I would say if we were to look at the order, obviously we're trying to maintain a level with the trails where maintenance is important. Otherwise, we over the years we've seen them slowly degrade. So that's what I think what Sean has pointed out with some of this basic maintenance. As we look at the priorities, I think Orchard Road on the Lango side is the top priority. We would like feedback from Lango, as I left you a message on. I don't know if there's I don't know where you land on this as as a property owner, but would like to feedback from the property owners. That's followed by Crossroads, and then Baptist Hill is I think in the lower priority. And I obviously let Sean weigh in on that as well. Now I did hear from Deb Mullen. I reached out. Is she in the room?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna she sent me a note this morning and wanted me to say this if she was not able to attend. She had some other things that she had to do this evening. She doesn't see the need for the tax dollars to be spent on the crossroad. She also wonders if there will be significantly more damage done trying to fix the crossroad trail up to what we think would be usable. Over the years, many years ago, there have been work done on the trail to make it usable for tractors and farm equipment, only to have it wash away within a few years to a point where it's not usable. She's concerned that it will require constant upkeep. She hasn't, she shared those concerns, right? I reached out to obviously Priscilla, I think Priscilla Farnham's been through some surgery, so I can't connect with her personally, but I reached out to Ben Wolf and shared some of these plans to get feedback from him as well. But I think they've been so occupied with some personal situation that they were not able to give feedback, but wanted to share that from landowners.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question
Yes.
about I believe the bottom of that still is used by the snowshoe club, and there was some concern that that was washing out and might need a culvert in there replaced. Is that something?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do a culvert necessarily, I can look at it again, but yes, it's washing out. I assume it's intersection with the vast network at that portion, yeah. I mean, it's washing out. It is.
Yes, Sue, you see your hand.
Well, I have a question, or kind of a comment. So walking, the walking groups and, that participate have never really had any desire to use Baptist Hill. Because it is just not a desirable,
Yeah.
And it's wet. So, I don't know who would use it, actually. I don't know, pour your money in, who's gonna use,
Well, I have an opinion, and my opinion is on all of these trails, we should do what Sean said. At least try to do the minimum to keep them from getting worse. Like on Baptist Hill, even if we don't want to use it, we should do something to make it not get worse. And maybe someday we'll decide to use the whole thing. But especially the worst parts, which seems like Baptist Hill and Crossroad, they just are gonna get worse and worse and worse, and so we need to do the minimum there. And then I think his idea of a, it's great for Orchard Road to put in some bridges to help them not get worse. And so that's what I would propose that we do. As soon as we can, which doesn't mean everything's gonna be done even this year, but we need to do something. Or have a plan to do something. If I can make a motion, that's what I do, but I can't.
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Jonathan, is the upper part of Baptist Hill Trail marked? Because it seems like it's not really clear where the trail is as it goes up through the pasture there. And whether it's used or not, it'd be sort of nice to know where the trail historically was.
It's very clear.
Are you talking about the Orchard Road side?
Yeah, from sort of that bridge up to Orchard
Yeah,
Road. It's
I mean, you can tell where it is. So there's about 150 feet, 200 feet of brushy stuff, and then it's an obvious road bed again. It's wettish. And then there's a big, it's spongy. It's not, it's by wettish, I mean, it's soggy. It's not walking in.
Did you go up to the top?
Standing water. And then
Would
there's
you
a
go back?
big, and then there's a big tank of maybe maple syrup, fat. And then there's a cross, you can get through pretty easily. Where it, I don't know what you call those, a gate where you like squeeze through.
Stile.
Yeah, stile. And then another stile, and then I can't remember the distance, but then it's pretty obvious. And then there's the upper very top, the last 100 feet or so. You can tell where it is, but that's the area that's kind of overgrown. But you can tell the road bed. Yeah.
Did you see, hey, John, do you see where I put the sign?
No, I haven't walked that section for a while because whenever in my memory, because there's a stream bed that sort of divides the
Yeah.
there, and I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if it is to that or if it's sort of moved by consensus to another spot.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm on recording here, but I put the sign in that stream bed. But whenever the first time I walked it, I ended up walking on John's lawn because it didn't feel right to walk through the stream bed. So, but I did put the sign in the stream bed. So,
Okay.
yeah, that section, as Sean mentioned, is the toughest part, right?
Yeah.
So just real quick, the crossroad, a bit of the motivation is just to get it off the private land. And I don't know how important that is to whoever, but that's the reason to put it back in the stream bed. It's where it is currently is actually easier, right? It's not a screw drainage area. But I think the idea is to get that. And you'd have to do the work to make it walkable. Because people just keep going out to the private land because there's an obvious path.
Yeah.
But it would seem to me that the town would have to be maintaining that on a constant basis. Every, meaning every year.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could do a more robust machinery and kind of create a drain and things and get it back to be where it really wouldn't wash out too much, hopefully, except for water or something. But yeah, it would require a lot of maintenance because it's a narrow path.
Right.
And there's drain in there and it obviously gets a lot, but even
A couple times a year, you'd have to be checking and seeing if it needed shoring up from the.
Because that's another seep that comes from the uphill side and then the trail's like this, so then it collects and runs down.
Yeah, a natural place for water to run.
It is.
All right, any more comments, questions?
I wish someone else would make a comment. I think Peter Hayden is Peter Hayden still on the
Yeah.
line?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would echo Peter's thoughts about the public right of way is very important. We know the two priorities that Sean has emphasized are the Orchard Road as far as things that can be dealt with in a short period of time. We're coming into May, and I would, at the end of my little speech here, ask Sean's opinion, depending on when he could get started with some of this work on both the Orchard, on the Landgo side, and also on the Crossroad. And we know, based on past testimony from a lot of people that use these trails, that none of us are intending this to be a major expense to the town. The town has already spent enough in legal fees. We have plenty of people that have volunteered and have done in the past to go out and work with the Upper Valley Trails Alliance to get the trails open when dry and usable to as many uses that are reasonable under the direction of the select board. And I hope that if a motion is made tonight, which I thought it would be, as far as the funding, if the select board's not open to doing the funding tonight, that there are private folks that are willing to do the funding and whether they get reimbursed or not. But as we get into May, we run the risk, if no decisions are made soon, of going to year 5. Middle of August will be year 5 since these trails have been sort of in jeopardy. So Sean, just ask you on your schedule, if the select board either tonight or at a future meeting were to decide to go ahead. I mean, you've got other concerns with other trails. Is this something that you could get to in the next month or two?
Yeah, we can fit, so it depends on the scope, but. Yeah.
Well, just focusing on Orchard and Crossroad.
Yes, we can fit.
Okay.
5 or 6 days.
Thanks.
And what was in your email, you sent estimates on the.
Well, it
cost.
depends on if you want to do bridges on Crossroad particularly. So Orchard Road, if you want to do 2 bridges, I'll start there because that one's less complicated. Those bridges are about 1,981.
Mhm.
It's, you know, who knows? It's a number will go up in the next couple of weeks. You know, we're $40 an hour, so it depends exactly who volunteers. It would just be one of us for half day, for day, something like that. But that one's, I have it at 2,000. It's, you know, 2 days with 2 staff people and 1,000 or 1,000 in labor and 1,000 in materials.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing. 2,000. Crossroad would depend on if you wanted to do bridges. It's, you know, I just put in 500 a day as labor place, and I had estimated that one at 4 days. That's 2,000 without any bridges.
Yeah.
Without materials.
Without materials, and then it depends on how many you want to do, because there's really 4 places that you can have big ones. One at the bottom is where I think needs it the most, and that one you could estimate it about 1,000. Yeah, another couple bridges.
Sean, in your professional estimation, would the maintenance you're recommending make the trails safer for pedestrian use?
Or safer, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's more a product of being a place that people would want to go and have a pleasurable experience, but it's going to be a lot less wet. It's going to be, you know, I wouldn't consider either of them particularly unsafe. It's more that not really useful, particularly. Although Orchard does, okay, you just gotta go through the street.
Can I say that the Conservation Commission has got some funds that they may consider being allocated to this.
Okay.
Necessary.
All right, I forgot you got one.
Well, we think there's a second allocation of the vital communities funds, and has that gotten any further along about accepting those funds?
Haven't been any further along, but the funds are there, so.
They are there because they thought it was left that you weren't happy with the final amount, and they were gonna check around to other towns, like Stratford and just.
Michael was gonna get back to it.
Yeah.
Michael.
Soccer.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll want to accept those funds. I think.
We will, if they offer again.
Hey, Gary.
Oh, sorry, Jonathan, yes.
So the Ranger has donated $600 for trails work, so that should be considered. The Trails Committee cannot have money, but the town has $600 from the Ranger.
Thank you.
And they'll likely fundraise again in June for trails work. So thank you to the Ranger.
Yeah.
So I would move that the town in consultation with the Trails Committee and pending agreement on funding, move ahead with the maintenance that Sean's recommending.
Yeah.
That's not gonna.
All right, all in favor of John's motion, please say aye. Aye. So, Jonathan Bicknell will be in contact with you, John, about proceeding.
Yeah, thanks, appreciate it. I also live in town. but-
Right.
Yeah.
You see,
Kind of a coincidence, but.
yeah,
Great.
all right,
Thank you.
we have a plan.
And Jonathan, the Trails Committee will meet with the appropriate landowners too.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, I guess, unless anybody else got anything to say about trails, we're gonna move on.
Gonna offer one very brief comment on
Yes, please.
Baptist, that it provides some really unique educational opportunities about wetlands.
Uh-huh. You mean outside the trail itself, I mean, looking off?
Access
In
to
the
that.
trail as well, it provides educational opportunities about the conflicts that arise, as well as the type of plant, the issues are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can have.
Oh, I see.
One part in.
Yeah. What you call that gateway thing there? Style.
And then when we take something.
Or take my eyes like.
Let's see, it says Trails Committee grants manager and other business. Thank you.
That's how moving on. Doesn't get right to the end, so. I've never been on, I guess, about this.
We gotta clean up.
That's okay. All right, let's move on to Mary Ann.
That's gonna,
Let's go.
I'm gonna do it. All right. I have a whole bunch of things. Find them all.
Yeah. When do you go on vacation? Have you already been?
No,
What's
no,
that?
that's why I'm all stressed out. I leave, Friday, well,
So,
Thursday night, Friday morning, whatever you wanna call it, at 2 AM.
Wildlife.
Wildfire.
stay at this time.
Okay.
What do you have first?
Okay, so the first one is that, to continue to the earlier conversation, the Northwoods contract. You need to sign that for me. And then this is the notice to proceed that goes with that contract. I don't know, I don't think Mariah printed you a.
Is that by the two, a yard, what, how much are we in for?
I don't remember. Oh, so they're here.
I think that's the insurance coverage. Yeah. It's, I'll look it up on my computer. This is a $200,000 grant and the quote came in over that, but it's an 80-20 grant anyway, so like. Oh, I'm not good. I think it's like 180 something thousand, but we spent a portion of the grant already.
Yes.
Doing the other work, but it comes out to be, as long as they don't go drastically over, it comes out to be about right, like our 20% is what they're over the amount of the grant, so like the full grant is. 200,000 and we owe like whatever that is, like 40,000 on top of that, and total price comes in at like 250 for you. It's really close. Yes, that's what you need.
Why doesn't it say all that in this?
Because that's not, they're not who we're actually contracted with. We're contracted with Sanborn Head, and Sanborn Head subcontracted with Woods. So we have to just agree that we are accepting Northwoods as the subcontractor that Sanborn Head has selected for the project that we actually contracted with Sanborn Head.
Make a motion.
Understand all that.
Did you get your benefit risk? You
We
did.
talked about that. Well, I
Alright.
haven't, no,
Alright.
but we're like this close.
Okay.
Make a motion, we accept the new contract for construction of the
Traffic road side one.
Traffic road, site one. Northwood. excavating.
Right, all in favor, say aye. Aye, I will sign it.
Northwoods, oh, I was confused here, what's the
Like northeast.
northeast? Right?
All right, you got it.
Okay, and then this one is the notice to proceed. This is the one that it doesn't actually say that September date on this document. That September date was in an email. I've since told them the September date doesn't work for us, but this is the notice to proceed that I will not send to them, even though you sign it. I will not send it until they confirm with my email that they are not going forward with the September date, that they're either going for that date or after that date.
So I sign right here.
Yes.
Issued today would be 4. We need to.
What's that?
Is it? How did I miss that?
And I think in your packet here is the next piece, which is. This is that document that is saying that based on the presentation tonight, we are accepting the report that you already did the motion for. We're putting the report for the sidewalks, the scoping.
Oh.
That's the document, we need to move that forward.
Do they stay involved if we decide to go with the whole shebang through the says? No, they're
I mean,
done.
Rita does, but not VHB,
Got it,
they were,
yeah.
they were subcontracted to do this, so
To do that.
so they would have to bid on our new work and we'd have to either select them or not.
Is that something that Two Rivers could do then the next
Yes.
part? Okay.
Yes, they could do all of the similar management that they did this time with like the. Like helping us with the bid and that kind of stuff, yes. This one is our grants and aid. We always have to sign the letter of intent by May 23rd, saying that we intend to participate in the grants and aid. That's transportation grant.
Oh.
So I just need to sign somewhere above your meeting. So we haven't picked a road or anything else yet. We just have to agree that we are intending to, we are participate in the grants and aid program. The next one is just the next reimbursement round for the. This would be the brick grant. So I just need to do this on there.
My signature is not the same twice.
So this would be a lot easier if I get it stamped with my name.
Yeah, see what I was behind.
Get one of those auto pens.
Alright,
And I could just hold it and it would line.
No, Mary Ann can hold it. on the side,
yeah.
right?
alright, so now we're on to the grant that I'm working on filing before I leave, which is the HMGP implementation grant. We have the
Did
HM,
you ever hear?
yes. We're still on record. So I probably shouldn't stand for my rear to the thing. So they've been working diligently on their BCA. I was notified today, so I had asked them to have it done by today. Knowing that I had to bring all of this stuff here. They don't have it fully complete yet or hasn't been sent to me, but we've been literally on the phone with every day. And the emergency management team has been, from VEM has been on with us every day, going back and forth, working to get the, so it's the BCR, the benefit cost. Ratio has to be at least a 1.0 for FEMA to even consider funding it. And so there was a lot of work for us to figure out like the different inputs to get that ratio to define where it needed to be. Today, they sent me a message saying they have gotten it over 1. And so it, go forward with having the select board sign everything. They're still tweaking the final document. they will be responsible for sending that to Brian at VEM if they complete it later than midnight Thursday. But they're aware of that, and Brian is aware of that, so, and they've all been talking, so they have promised us they will get it, the final draft, to the state of Vermont by the 4:30 deadline. Brian has said I can submit everything else. And as long as that number is over 1, it makes sense for all of us to continue, and that's what they confirmed today, is that it's over 1. So they're, yeah, so they're finishing their work. So they're finishing their work. They also have to revise the final report for us. I sent them back an assortment of things they needed to change, edit in their final report. That will also go over to VEM. But I finished all the other documents that we need to send along with it. And I will send everything over tonight, tomorrow, before I leave. Then they send their piece, and the actual grant submission will go in. So. First one, this is just the 424 form, which is the, sort of, looks like the official application saying that we're applying for federal money. Just sign that bottom line there. This is the maintenance agreement saying that if we were to get the grant and they gave us all this money to fix our road, we were then going to put in the effort on our part every year to maintain said road.
We have to clear debris and garbage and vermin.
And vermin, we have to get rid of vermin.
Bats.
No vermin.
It says no vermin.
No vermin.
I love vermin.
We keep them in West Tunbridge.
Is it defined, Roman?
This is the one that says that we agree that if we're getting federal money, that we will follow all of their various regulations, including like our lobbying issues and drug-free workplace and all of that. We'll follow all the proper construction insurance, federal requirements, etc.
We must do that anyway.
Probably pretty similar to the States.
And then this is the actual formal application, the full document. You're welcome to read it if you want. The total dollar amount roughly that we're asking for comes in at 907,774. Under $1 million. And we would be responsible for 200 and so it's a 75/25. Yeah. Hold on, let me just check myself. Yes, it's a 75/25. So of that amount of money, we would be responsible for 226,943.
We haven't budgeted for that.
No, so the conversation with Becky though is that you always have a road, you have like a road fund, contingency fund, always got money in that, and so the issue would be that if we were to receive this grant, and then we would have to figure out in what year it's going to occur. You would have to agree that this is the project you did in that year, and that's the money that came out of that fund in that year, instead of a bridge that Rodney wants or some other project, so. But it's roughly the 227,000 that would be our portion of this.
Is that a reimbursement grant too, though? Do we need other money?
No, so the way, at least the way the brick and the original version of this one is we submit, like that's what Gary just signed off on with them, so we submit monthly. And they pay it pretty quickly.
Okay.
It's better.
So a lot of the transportation ones, we don't get reimbursed until the project is complete, and we sign off the project is complete. So far, all of these ones, right, but all of these ones have been monthly. In fact, I get my hand slapped if I don't send it in monthly, like if it takes too long for the person to cash the check. And then we're past the 30 days. When I submit it, I get a reply reminder saying, reminder, you are required to submit these within 30 days of the expenditure, but sometimes it's hard to hit 30 days if it's 2 weeks till you guys have a meeting, then Becky cuts the check gets mailed. They pick up their check if they don't take it to the bank immediately. Sometimes it's past 30 days before I get a copy of the canceled check, so.
Do we have to keep up then monthly with our match?
No.
We don't, okay.
No, but so the way, like this one here, the way it works though is we don't. So then, yes, I'm sorry, the answer is yes. I didn't think through how I was gonna answer you. The way this report shows is like I'm submitting saying that the expenses for this month were $2,020. And what I'm gonna get sent back is 1,515, because every
Right.
month they take off your match
Off the
part.
25%.
So every month they're pulling their portion out and then sending you the 75%. So by the time we submit the last one of these, we will have gotten reimbursed
But
for
did we
our.
pay upfront the 2,000?
We did,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
We pay up front. I submit, I get 80%
Right,
back,
yeah.
or 75% back, depending on which one it is.
Yeah. Withholding.
Yes. Um,
So is this part of that?
yes,
Okay.
that's all. So this is all the actual application. If you want to look through it, it's just all it's all the verbiage about like, you know, we have to get a streams permit because there's gonna be work in the stream, and we have to get, you know, like the,
DEC.
yeah, there's 3 different permits we have to get.
Department Inspector.
US Army Corps, our local floodplain, and then the A&R. So there's 3 different permits we'd have to get if we went forward. You know, I had to verify for them, that, you know, there will be, we will have to cut down trees. I literally had to tell them what types of trees and how many we're cutting down. Ground disturbance, we had to go and say, like, this is the length, width, and depth of the ground disturbance. Yeah, we had to verify that there was no hazardous material, that there was no endangered species. I had to,
Go run for the hills.
but they reproduce so fast that there won't be
Okay.
extinction.
Oh,
I'm to the transfer station.
Go down the Ackroyd's house, go to the other.
All right, yeah.
You know, and then there's like, I think I have like probably 12 plus things that are on my computer that are like the attachments that have to go with this, the site plan,
God.
the engineering
Appendixes.
report, all these things that go with it. So that's the work that's been done to prep it. We are obligated to submit this application because the BCA came back at higher than 1. That was because we got the scoping grant, we are obligated to submit the application. The state of Vermont is actually not super confident that our project will be picked as one of the ones to be done. Because it is very expensive, and at the moment, the engineering report says that though the embankment is likely to fail, they do not predict that it's imminent failure, which would be within 5 years. They predicted based on whatever soil boring and calculations they did, that the failure would be somewhere in the 5 to 25 year range. And so that doesn't put our project at the top of the funding list, because anybody who's got
Imminent.
is gonna still, if they.
So it may not even happen.
Right, if they have enough money after the sort of imminent priority projects, then they start going through the rest, so.
If they just let us go down and get in the river, put a bunch of stone, and get small, it would never bother.
It happened.
Do you want me to sign it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead, I'll submit it, they'll work through their process, they will decide if there's any funding for us and if we become a priority, and then if we do. Then they may come back and forth and ask for additional information or ask us to edit stuff, but the initial batch.
You enough?
What?
Yeah, that's my
I
question.
put a lot of hours this past week to make sure that you guys were okay while I go
How
on
does that work with
vacation.
the grant? Is there an admin?
So there is.
Yep.
But the state of Vermont, DEM encouraged us not to do that portion, and part of the reason why is because apparently the requirements for how you can actually get paid for the administrative portion are so onerous that almost nobody actually is able to achieve it, and so it's a waste of, quote unquote, a waste of time, and so he
It costs
said.
more to do it than to.
And
Analysis.
And it adds additional pieces of paper we would have had to fill out and have prepared for, and he was just sort of like, don't waste your time, so. And it allows up to 5%, but like literally the way you have to time keep, apparently it has to be. I feel like he said something to the effect of like, it has to be an electronic time keep to prove, so like our paper form doesn't count and.
That's the federal job is to administer that paperwork, which nobody ever sends in, so it's so onerous.
Right.
Oh, another day, no paperwork.
Okay, so those are all the ones that are, so I'm submitting the grants and aid and the HMGP before I leave. And then I've submitted the paving grant for Rodney already. That's the quote that you guys have somewhere there.
Yep. Anything on slide 2?
This is slide 2.
Oh, that's it.
This is slide 2, yep. And then you've signed the paperwork for slide 1 to move forward. Yeah, so that's the one that I just submitted the paving grant. We requested the max 200,000. We have not gotten it in the last 2 years, but we did get it. The first year, you had already gotten it and I was administering it. We were denied the next year because we had received one. Then last year we were denied, but we actually ended up getting it, but for the additional work on slide 1, not as a paving grant. So they had money left over and they said, we have money left over, but we're not gonna fund your paving grant, but we'll kick it towards your slide grant. So we actually did get it. Yes, we did get it last year, even though it didn't go to paving, but it went to that other purpose.
MERP we need to do,
Nothing on MERP.
let's get it going, right?
Right, and so that's not on us, that's on Two Rivers. We contracted Two Rivers to do the bidding process for us.
Letter.
Oh, okay, so there.
And so they put it out to bid, and they only got the one bid for the HVAC system, which was the guy that I walked around here. And so they did not get enough people or any bids actually for the weatherization portion, so they are reframing it and going out to bid again. So there's no work for us to do until they actually get us a contract with someone to do the work. So that's on Two Rivers.
Do they have to go together or could we go ahead with HVAC?
I don't know, but at the moment, it's all managed through Two Rivers, so
Okay.
they would have to make the decision to move forward with the HVAC as a separate process. That's not in our control right now. That's MERP. I feel like there was one more. Oh, April is also the month that we have to submit all of our annual reports and quarterly reports. So the BRIC quarterly report was submitted. The HMGP quarterly report was submitted. Our ARPA annual report was submitted, which is the one where we already had spent all the money. So every year I just have to go into their ridiculous portal and recertify that somehow the money didn't get unspent. And then MERP annual reporting occurred in April. All of those reports have been submitted.
Better back roads.
Better back roads, I think we already submitted. That was one that happens earlier. But all the May 15th transportation grants were submitted.
What about the
No,
the bench in the town forest, correct?
no.
That doesn't need a quarterly, that's done.
But
Not gonna do with A&R again.
yeah,
That one's wrapped up.
that one's all wrapped up, all done. That, no more for that guy, no more HR for him, ever. Rudy, I'm still here, no more, ever. I'll pay,
We saw the bench.
I'll pay out of my own checking account. It'll be cheaper. I'm trying to remember if there was any other. I think those were the big, oh, so then the next step, sorry, there's one more, the BRIC. I received the BCA for the BRIC scoping grant, which is our, that's the,
Safety.
emergency corridor, vulnerability corridor study. They sent the BCA today for the 4 sites. It is over 1.0, but we also received notice from the state that all future BRIC funding has been canceled.
It's paused, canceled.
Canceled by the current administration.
Wow.
So we have 2 options. One is we had the scoping study done. It tells us the expenses. We now can go either after other like transportation grants next year, one of our grants and aid or our better back roads. We could pick off one of the spring road projects.
Because they want engineering studies, right?
So we have that, so we can go after whatever we want or do the state
So it
grants.
wasn't wasted money.
Not wasted money. Or so Brian at VM said that technically that would qualify us to submit for a second HMGP grant. So we're doing that one for slide 2. We're obligated, you just signed it. All that has to be done for slide 2. If somehow they went through all of the grants that get submitted And after they, sort of fund all the imminents, and then they go through the others and they decide who makes sense, if there was money left over, we could submit the brick for it to be considered for the additional leftover HMGP money. So he told me, go on vacation, come back from vacation and check in with me, and I will tell you if it's worth your time to sort of do all this paperwork times 2 for the brick. So
What's HMGP?
Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. So we'll wait to decide if we do all this paperwork times 2.
So you're not gonna take your computer on vacation?
I said to him, if you think there's a chance that we could get it in the first round, I'll take my computer, and he was like, don't. Take your
You're good,
computer.
you're leaving it home.
So.
Don't forget your cell phone. though.
Yeah, no, that's the only other one that is, we had hoped that we were gonna be, and that application period would have been in the fall. So we would have been able to be working on it this summer, submit it for fall, and hopefully get funded to do those 4 sites through the brick, but it got canceled.
What was the sidewalk scoping grant thing called? Cause that was a grant too, wasn't it?
The sidewalk scoping
Yeah.
that we just talked about? Yes. Let's see, who is that one through?
Cause that teases up to apply for the grant they were talking about, right?
So, yes, but that one's not an obligatory one, so we don't have to apply, so there's a bike ped grant that's gonna be opening in May. There's also the transportation alternatives grants that open in the fall. But that sidewalk one did not obligate us to go to the next step. The HMGP one obligated us, and the brick one would have obligated us
Until
the funding got. And let's see.
So those bike ped and transportation alternative are at V-Trans or at like federal?
Yeah, I think, I mean, they're on the V-Trans website. I haven't actually looked in, we haven't applied for either one of those, so I haven't not looked into in detail what they. And then, of course, we applied for our Green Up Bay grant.
Funny thing this weekend for me that came up was that there's something called the land use change tax. So if you're withdrawing land from current use, there's a penalty. And they changed the formula a few years ago. It used to be prorated by the size of the parcel, and so you're taking out 4 acres, and if you've added 100, then it's the whole thing, and then it was easy for the listers, but then they changed the formula, so now it's what is it? It's like the fair market value of those withdrawn acres times 10%, I think. So if they, your 4 acres are worth $20,000, and it's 10% of that. And that's been a nightmare for the listers because they have to go out and do a reassessment essentially. The head of the current use in the tax department said it costs more. They only make like, I don't know, like 1.5 or 2 million a year on it, and it goes towards the education, but it actually costs more to administer it. It doesn't they make, so you're like, why are we doing this?
Something like making pennies.
Well, or losing pennies, right? It's just like, we make, 80 cents on the dollar if we're doing this. It's like,
wow.
So
Elon Musk gets at that.
yeah, I know. But
Wow.
it's funny too, because it's the general fund paying the tax department
Right.
to administer this.
Yeah.
And then the
And then the money
like-
goes to the education.
Exactly, yeah. Just like they're scared of the general fund.
So what happens about something, how long does it take to remedy that situation, or are they going to?
They're not going to right now, and it just came up. I was like, are you kidding me? We either should make it a bigger penalty because
Right.
the state invested in people staying in current use.
Right,
Or just get rid of the whole
Or
thing.
get rid of the
Yeah,
whole thing.
exactly. It's already out there.
The
We'll make
only
it
other,
easier so it's not so expensive to administer.
Right, like you said, if you were just gonna do
Go back to the old
5%,
one.
10%,
Exactly.
something like that, that'd be pretty easy.
Right, and it was, yeah.
so the only other thing is that we did
we signed off on the solar array contract. I sent that out. We had to send them $1,000 deposit check. Becky did that, so now that work can occur whenever,
Good.
and that portion of the work can be tied up as soon as.
Well,
as-
that's right, it was part of the work.
So we carved out that portion and kept that portion in-house because we had the Vermont Law School
Right.
and Todd Tyson and others, so. We kept that portion and that portion is moving forward. That's the only portion at the moment.
And that's
actually
okay
moving
with Mark.
Well, I'm glad you're doing that, not me.
We could do a whole edition of the Tunbridge Quarterly, just
Yes.
grants. That'd be really exciting reading.
Exciting, reading. All right, hi.
A sub Tunbridge Quarterly.
Yeah.
Keep up with the 12 different grants.
Yeah.
right here.
Well, Karen, I for one, like to thank you for the work that you do.
Yeah.
I mean, just sitting here. How the hell do you be able to keep it all straight?
That was the
I
hard
did
part.
before we were here.
Right,
Yeah.
It's amazing, so
no, you.
public service is a thankless job.
Well, I do get paid. They do pay me.
But
Thank you.
But you're doing,
It's enough.
yeah, but you're doing way more grants than ever before.
Oh, way more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just because you can and,
Yes.
One good thing came out of COVID.
yes.
All right, so I'm,
used to be better back roads and a couple other things, and that was it.
Meeting grant, over.
Yeah.
that's it for me. I'm just gonna pop across the street here and do all of my scanning before I leave so that I can then send everything in the morning.
We've got 2 more days to go.
2 more days to go. I am
Where do you fly from?
actually flying from Burlington to Atlanta and then Atlanta to Curacao.
Yeah.
But I haven't packed and
You don't need to take much.
I'm just leaving my bank card for Jeremiah. Because
I'll be laying on the beach, what do you need?
Right?
A straw for that.
Who's gonna feed the 2 of them now?
I know, well, that's, I mean, my friend, she's like, she made all of these like meals and then she's freezing them for when they really heat, and I was just like, here's my bank card. Go there. I don't care what you do, just stay alive until I get back.
They're like cats, right? You're just gonna big bowl of kibbles out and hope for the best.
And I went and got extra grain for the horses, you know, like everybody just eat until I get home.
What are you going like 9 days?
Yeah. And I mean, I think you can go like 2 weeks without food, technically, right? It's like,
Water's the big thing.
or the 3
Hydrate.
weeks, it's 3 weeks, right? You can go 3 days without shelter. Or no,
Right.
3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, so that's
Yeah.
fine.
3 minutes without air.
And 3 minutes without it. They will be fine.
Area, watch out.
Yeah, I'll watch the horses.
So you guys, are you done now pretty much, or you got more?
One thing while Mariah's there.
We're gonna sign for
Oh, okay.
Hey, Mariah, you couldn't see who was behind the owl, could you?
I could, yep, it does it all the way around.
So you got everybody who was behind there for the trails?
I did.
Okay.
And I just have one thing. I have a baby that's trying to wake up. The one thing that I had was Roger Clark was wondering if you guys discussed what his constable salary was gonna be.
Have a good trip.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tell him not very much.
Yeah, he goes, I don't know, they said maybe 800, they said maybe 200, they said keep track of your hours and we'll see at the end of the year. So he said, did they decide? I said, I don't know, I'll ask him.
Line item, not per constable, but for the whole constable position.
800, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we don't get another constable, is he entitled to the whole thing?
If you work something.
So it's more, we'll figure out the hours, maybe do sort of like health officer for the stipend, but it'd be nice to know, right, if it's.
Difficult because he's never done it before.
Right.
How about 400?
Well, theoretically, we would just get him 400.
Right, like it traditionally was, when we get to the health officer, right? Both those positions, so it'd be nice if they. Going forward, if it's somewhat recognized how much work they did.
Right,
Right.
right,
Cause I'm all for paying them what they did,
right.
so. Yeah. Stipends don't get paid until November anyway, so.
It would be nice. I think it'd be nice if we told them to come in once a month. And say,
Right.
I went
Report.
and picked up a dog and I
Yeah.
went with a
How
health
to write a
officer.
report from dog bites.
Okay, well,
And then at the end, then for next year, I mean,
We can budget.
supposedly we can't do nothing this year, but next year we could budget more money.
Does he not officially begin until July 1st?
No,
no, he can start now. You appointed him and the position was open at town meeting, so.
Okay.
Okay, if you think of anything for me, call me tomorrow and tell me my to-do list.
Good night.
yeah, get ready for that.
Your clock is wrong.
Twice a day.
Said the baby was trying to wake up.
It's 6:15 down the street, so the baby's waking up. 20.
What time is it in West Tunbridge?
It's just getting done. September.
All right, we'll get some orders to sign. I assume.
Other business. I think we can turn that off.
If Mike would turn it off, we could,
Okay.
that's all we're gonna do. I was thinking, I'd like to get back, we can get, after actually going through the minutes.
Yes,
And also give us, even if it's this time of the night.
right, yeah,
And then, I mean, you're great at picking up spelling mistakes
I'm
and
big on-
and all kinds of stuff, but.
right. Well, why don't I do a first pass and then we'll.
Yeah,
So far behind.
oh, that was.
Been waiting for in terms